I tricked my cheating wife into believing that I was the one having an affair, then vanished like a nuclear ghost ninja and handed her the divorce papers on Christmas Day. Here's the full story. It spans from late 2019, and all names are changed. My wife had been the love of my life since high school. We started dating in 1992. Both of us were 17. Now we're 45, and all those years we never separated. She was the only woman I'd ever been with. We got married at 22, right after college, and a year later, our first son was born. I gave her 23 years of my life, built our home, worked myself to exhaustion to give her the life she dreamed of. Of course, we had rough patches, but what couple doesn't? Even the hardest moments made us stronger. That's why discovering her affair felt like getting hit by a truck. In March 2020, I first sensed something was wrong. 2 months before that, we already weren't in a good place. I was recovering from ACL reconstruction. I tore the ligament in fall 2019 and still barely had 55% mobility. That slowed down everything at home. I was on injury leave from my job, couldn't handle many household responsibilities, and the things only I could do had to be pushed onto her. She wasn't happy about it. And our intimacy, which had already decreased before the injury, basically disappeared completely. Around that time, my wife, let's call her Sue, started spending more time with coworkers after work. From November 2019 to March 2020, it became a regular thing. I never questioned it. In 23 years of marriage, she never gave me a single reason to doubt her. She had her friends, I had mine, we had shared friends too. It was never a problem. But sometime in January 2020, things changed. She became distant. Yes, we were struggling, but she had never avoided affectionate touches before. Her hugs, small kisses, even simple closeness, gone. Her phone, which she used constantly anyway, stopped being something she shared with me. Before, she'd show me Pinterest crafts or funny memes. Now she hid the screen, angled it away, held it tighter. Her tone toward me became sharper, like I irritated her just by existing. Then March 2020 hit. The pandemic began, New York shut down. Our jobs were classified as essential, so we kept working. I had just been cleared to return to work after 5 months of rehab, and I was desperate to get back. Months stuck at home, unable to exercise, was torture for someone who trains martial arts and goes to the gym 4 times a week. A week or two into lockdown, my wife said she'd need to stay late at work. I didn't think much of it. With her job, it seemed plausible. But she started staying late every single day. Not an hour or two, 3 hours or more. She'd come home, head straight to the shower, spend a little time with me, a little time with our 17-year-old son, our older one, 22, lived with his girlfriend, and go to bed. As my knee improved, we resumed intimacy, but she was completely absent, emotionally gone, mentally somewhere else. I noticed immediately. By early April, everything aligned. All the signs pointed to an affair. I needed answers. I researched what to look for, read lists of typical cheating behaviors. She hit nearly every point. Then I dug deeper, looking for actual proof. I started with her social media. Her Facebook looked normal, pictures of us, the kids, friends, and several photos of her after-work hangouts. Some people I recognized, others I didn't. But one guy stood out. He appeared in many photos, always too close to my wife. Hand on her shoulder, hand on her waist. Too familiar for someone I'd never met. He was friends with her on Facebook and followed her on Instagram. So I checked his profile. He had blocked me. A man I didn't know had blocked me, yet was connected to my wife. That was the moment I knew something was seriously wrong. No more denial. She was cheating, and this guy was the one. I needed to know how long it had been going on, so I kept digging all through April and May. We had a shared family mobile plan, so I could access call logs. Two numbers dominated her call history from October 2019 to April 2020, mine and an unknown number. A quick Google search confirmed it was him, the same guy from the photos. Let's call him Mark, though I had other names in mind. The picture grew clearer. Many messages were deleted, which meant she was hiding things. I knew she was cheating, but I still lacked hard evidence. So I kept going.
At that point, I knew I needed real evidence. I told my best friend Ozzy about everything I had discovered. He asked if I had confronted her, but I said no, it didn't feel like enough. Then he told me about an app I could install to monitor her messages in real time. I set it up, synced it to our shared phone plan, and waited. Within a few days, I finally saw the proof. Messages between them about how much fun they had the night before and how excited they were to do it again over the weekend. It was like getting punched in the gut. Shocked doesn't even begin to describe it. For the next 2 days, I was completely destroyed. I avoided her on purpose, which she definitely noticed. She tried comforting me and asked what was wrong, but I brushed her off. I couldn't even look at her, the woman I had given 23 years of my life to. The woman I had given everything and more, and she cheated on me with someone only 5 years older than our eldest son. On the third day, I wasn't sad anymore. I was angry. I called Ozzy to tell him my suspicions were confirmed. He asked if I had talked to her yet. I told him no, because I wanted revenge. I didn't just want to divorce her. I wanted to destroy her. I wanted her life to fall apart. I wanted her to feel everything she had made me feel. That would take time, so I made a plan. While researching infidelity, I ran across a quote that stuck with me. The enemy of an affair is unpredictability, or something like that. That became the foundation of my plan. I was going to make her life hell, while secretly preparing my own escape. By early June, I still had the app installed. Almost every night, I collected as much information as I could, watching their conversations. They acted like they were in a full-blown relationship, sexting, romantic messages, sending each other nudes, the whole package. At some point, I stopped reading everything and just archived it all on my private server. Meanwhile, I started doing unusual things. I began leaving the house at weird times. I came home later than she did. When she saw me on my phone and asked what I was doing, I would say, just stuff, and put the phone away. I changed all my account passwords so she couldn't access anything. For context, throughout our entire marriage, we never hid anything from each other. But from the moment her affair began, she changed her Facebook and phone passwords, claiming she had security issues. Perfect excuse for hiding an affair. I told Ozzy about my plan and also confided in my older sister and two closest friends, Joey and Nina. These were people I trusted with my life. They swore to keep it secret. Ozzy and I have been friends since childhood, Joey and Nina since high school. Pay attention to Nina, she becomes important later. By July, my wife had become completely paranoid. She started texting and calling me much more often, constantly asking where I was and what I was doing. I saw that the seed of doubt I planted months earlier had finally started to grow. It was especially obvious in her conversations with her lover. She told him she felt confused and worried, said I was becoming cold and distant. The audacity. She suggested they stop meeting at our house because she never knew when I might come home now, which confirmed it. She had been bringing him into our home. Thanks, Sue. In one conversation, the guy asked if she was worried that I might be cheating on her. That made her angry, and I cannot explain to you how much joy and laughter that conversation brought me. My cheating wife arguing with her affair partner about whether she should be upset that her husband might be cheating on her. The irony was delicious. For the record, I never cheated on her. When I left the house, I was usually at Ozzy's or Joey's. We hung out, had drinks, watched fights. Sometimes I was at my sister's with her husband. She's 52, he's 58, like an older brother to me. She told him about my wife's affair, but didn't mention my plan. He tends to gossip, and I couldn't risk it.
Jump to October, when things got serious. I had been running my fake affair routine for 3 months. Sue clearly saw I was pulling away. From the day I started my plan until the day she confronted me, October 20th, 2020, I hadn't touched her once. No hugs, no kisses, no sex. Nothing. Not that she needed it. She was still sleeping with the guy at his place or in motels. That day, she called me at work and asked me to come home right after my shift, saying we needed to talk. I won't lie, part of me thought she might confess. Of course she didn't. Instead, I came home and she asked me if I was unhappy with her. The nerve. She pointed out that I spent too much time away, didn't show affection anymore, and that our sex life had disappeared. She said she worried I was pushing her away because of how she treated me during my knee recovery. Then she asked the funniest question of my life. She asked if I was cheating on her. I collapsed on the floor laughing, a Joker-style laugh. From her perspective, it looked like I was laughing at the idea of being unfaithful. In reality, I was laughing at the absurdity of the situation. I laughed until tears came, rolled around for about 5 minutes before I finally calmed down. Then I sat up, looked her in the eyes for the first time in months, shook my head without answering, kissed the top of her head, and walked away. Later that night, I opened the app to see what she was telling her affair partner. No surprise, they were texting. She wrote, "I know he's cheating on me. I asked him today and he just laughed in my face. He fell on the floor and rolled around for like 5 minutes. He doesn't care about my feelings anymore. I know I lost him. This is karma." The grin on my face must have looked like the Cheshire Cat. She was breaking down. The guy tried comforting her, saying that if he truly loved her, she wouldn't have needed him, and that I hadn't been giving her what she needed. But her tone said everything. She was full of doubt. The sheer audacity. She cheated on me because I couldn't fulfill my duties as a husband due to a real injury, and yet she continued the affair without a second thought.
Almost the whole idea that she might lose me because of another woman shook her to the core. What a coward. During this time, I was also working hard on the second phase of my plan. I was putting my finances in order. Back in September, I met with a family law attorney and started the divorce process, armed with a mountain of evidence I'd collected. In New York, divorces can be filed as fault-based or no fault, and with the amount of proof I had, a fault-based divorce was practically guaranteed to corner her legally. My lawyer advised me to organize all financial documents in preparation for splitting our assets. I went further. I secretly withdrew all the money from our joint account and transferred it into my personal one. I also began looking for an apartment as part of Phase 2. By November, I didn't just maintain my cold behavior, I amplified it. This is where my friend Nina comes into the story. For context, Nina and Sue had never been close. I met Nina in my first year of high school, 2 years before I even knew Sue. From the moment Sue and I started dating, she viewed Nina as a threat because Nina was my closest female friend. Sue never said it directly, but anyone around us could see she didn't trust Nina, and Nina, for her part, was never a big fan of Sue. Early in my relationship with Sue, Nina pointed out how Sue kept inserting herself into our friend group while I never did that with her friends. Nina knew exactly why Sue acted that way: jealousy. While Sue's entire friend circle consisted only of women, besides her affair partner, of course, Nina remained the only woman in my circle of friends. Nina had been stuck abroad for a while due to the pandemic, but she finally returned to New York on November 3rd. Ozzy, Joey, his wife, who was also Nina's sister, Nina and I decided to celebrate her return with drinks and dinner at Joey's place. Being the clever fox she is, Nina came up with a devilish idea: recreate a few photos in the same style as the ones I'd seen of Sue and her affair partner months ago and post them on my Facebook page. So we did exactly that. On November 5th, Sue found out. I guess some mutual friends saw the pictures and noticed how close Nina and I looked. It completely rattled Sue. She still firmly believed I was cheating on her, and she probably wanted to accuse Nina, but she couldn't since Nina had spent almost the entire year in Europe.
That didn't stop Sue from confronting me that night, upset that, in her words, I was being too affectionate in those photos. And that gave me the perfect opportunity to land the first blow. I told her, "How about those photos of you and that guy from last year? He looked pretty affectionate too, and I didn't lose my mind over it." She froze. That was the first time I'd ever mentioned the affair partner by name. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head as she scrambled for an excuse. Up until then, she didn't even know I had seen the photos. That's how rarely I use Facebook. She eventually muttered something like, "He's like that with everyone. He's just friendly. I know how it looks, but nothing happened between us. I'm sorry if the photos upset you. I'll delete them." "No," I said. "The photos aren't the problem. The problem is that you slept with him for an entire year while lying to me about working late and meeting friends. That's what upset me." From that night on, she became unbelievably clingy, overly affectionate, constantly trying to hold me, kiss me, touch me. It was annoying. I ignored her every chance I got. Meanwhile, I kept archiving her messages with the affair partner. By that point, I was completely numb. Any desire to save our marriage had died the day I launched phase 1 of my plan. She texted him that things had gotten worse, that she didn't know what to do, and that she felt like I hated her. And I did. Deeply. And then came the turning point. She told him she couldn't see him anymore. The guilt was crushing her. She felt like karma was suffocating her, and she couldn't risk losing me. She claimed she deeply loved him, but was still in love with me and needed to save her marriage. "No, sweetheart, you were about 8 months too late." The guy freaked out, begging her not to leave him. He insisted I didn't love her like he did, that she was making a mistake and that she couldn't just throw away what they had. Throughout November and December, Sue was stuck in limbo. She desperately tried to figure out what I was thinking, but she still couldn't determine whether I was cheating or not. Meanwhile, the affair partner kept bombarding her with messages every day. She just ignored them. I noticed her checking her phone constantly, then quickly hiding it. By then, phase 2 of my plan was complete. Divorce papers ready, a studio apartment in the Bronx leased for 2 years, and all our money sitting safely in my personal account. I was ready to strike. Then came Thanksgiving. My older son and his girlfriend hosted a small dinner for close family. It was me, Sue, our younger son, her parents, and the girlfriend's parents. The food was incredible. The girl is studying culinary arts and cooked everything herself. To maintain the appearance that Sue and I were fine, I showed her a bit of affection that evening. A kiss on the cheek, a gentle hug, my arm around her shoulders. She was thrilled. It was the first time I had touched her in almost 2 months since that night in October when she confronted me. I won't lie, it made my skin crawl, but I had to keep up appearances. Pulling away in front of our sons and their guests would have raised questions. Our younger son stayed the night with his brother, and Sue and I went home. On the way, she thanked me for being so kind and said, "I don't know what's going on with you lately, honey, but I'm here." I just had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. I simply said, "I know. I just need some time." That night, for the first time since spring, we slept together. I thought, screw it. Why not enjoy myself one last time before I erase her from my life? I won't go into detail, but it wasn't making love. When I finished, she lay there staring at the ceiling like she'd just been hit by a truck. No cuddling, no tenderness, nothing.
After it was over, I simply got up, took a shower, and went to sleep in my office. What unsettled her most was the fact that I used a condom for the first time in 20 damn years. She was clearly confused, but she didn't ask questions. And of course, I wasn't about to sleep with her unprotected after knowing she'd been doing exactly that with her lover for months. The next morning, I woke up and immediately checked the tracking app. For the first time in weeks, she had replied to him. The guy completely poured his heart out, confessed his love, told her she was wasting her time trying to reignite a dead flame with me, claimed she had been trapped in a cage for 23 years and deserved a man who truly valued her. And remember, This guy is only 5 years older than our son. She was ready to destroy our marriage and the home we built for him. She responded almost exactly as she had before. Told him she loved him, enjoyed their time together, but couldn't lose me. Said I was still the love of her life, though he would always have a place in her heart. She suggested staying friends if he wanted, but their physical relationship had to end. He begged her to meet one more time, and of course, she agreed to one last goodbye. Who am I to judge? I'd done the same with her the night before. Naturally, I added all of this to the archive I'd been building. On December 4th, the third and final phase of my plan began. I already had the divorce documents in hand and my new apartment secured. The next step was to start quietly moving my belongings out. But first, I had to tell our sons. On Friday evening, I asked my oldest to come home. I took both boys into my office and told them, without going into graphic detail, that their mother had been cheating on me for over a year and that I would soon be filing for divorce. My younger son took it especially hard. He'd just gone through his own heartbreak 4 months earlier when his first girlfriend cheated on him. Watching his heart break again because his own mother could do something like this, it was brutal. My older son handled it more calmly. He offered to let his brother stay with him until things settled down, and I agreed. We packed my younger son's things, and before leaving, he asked if I would be okay. I told him, "Yes, son, I'll be fine, and you will be too. We'll get through this, I promise." They left, and the hardest part was behind me. Now it was time to arm the nuclear payload. When my older son was at work, I used the spare key he had given me to start taking a few things, items Sue wouldn't notice missing right away. I also bought a new phone, a new number, and sent the updated contacts to the people who needed them: Ozzy, Joey, Nina, my sons, my sister, and my mother. Meanwhile, Sue was left in the dark. She kept minimal contact with her lover, but the emotional bond was still there. All the while, I continued gathering data: every message, every call log, every picture, every recording. I printed everything. I must have spent over $1,500 on printer cartridges, folders, labels, boxes, the whole setup. I organized everything chronologically from the beginning of their affair to their most recent exchange. By December 16th, it filled 14 folders. I boxed them up, wrapped them like Christmas presents, and addressed them to my mother, her parents, her 2 sisters, her brother, her HR department. Oh right, he worked at the same company, which had strict rules about coworker relationships. Several of her friends, the lover's parents, and the lover himself. I shipped the entire collection on December 16th. Estimated arrival, December 22 to 24. Perfect timing. Then came Christmas Eve. Sue got home at the usual time. No idea whether she had seen her lover. I'd stopped checking the app after the 18th. She showered, spent a little time with me on the couch, then went to bed. The final stage was approaching. The bomb I'd been assembling since June was ready to explode. In the middle of the night, I woke up, took one of the remaining folders, wrapped it like a gift, and slid the divorce papers into the inside cover, and left it on my side of the bed with a note that said, "Merry Christmas." Next to it, I left my old phone and my lawyer's business card. I packed the last essentials into 2 backpacks and walked out of the house I'd lived in for 23 years. That was 1 week ago. To Sue, I've completely vanished. She's blocked on Facebook, but oddly, she hasn't blocked me, so I can still watch everything unfold. It's glorious. All the packages arrived. Sue is getting absolutely torn apart. Her younger sister went off on her. Her parents are furious. My mom annihilated her. I knew my mother could be harsh, but what she said to Sue was downright savage. Sue is desperately trying to find out where I am, but the people who know aren't saying a word. Her Facebook is full of posts begging me to contact her. She must know I can see it, but I won't respond to anything without my lawyer present. She has no way to twist this to make me the villain. And according to our mutual friend, who works at the same company, both she and her affair partner are being put on unpaid leave starting tomorrow. So she will probably begin 2021 unemployed. As for the remaining 2 folders, one went to my attorney as final evidence, and I kept the last one to burn at Joey's place once the divorce is finalized. Do I feel guilty? Not even a little. For 23 years I was loyal to this woman. I gave her the home she dreamed of, the family she wanted, the life I thought we both deserved. I loved her unconditionally. I never betrayed her, never even considered breaking my vows. Whenever something felt off in our marriage, I talked with her. We solved problems as best we could. She chose the comfort of another man's bed instead of coming to me and saying she was unhappy with our intimacy. The moment she crawled into bed with that younger guy, she ended our marriage. So no, I feel zero remorse. Let her burn in hell for all I care. The worst I can lose is the house, the car, and maybe a couple $100s a month. But since this is a fault-based divorce in New York and my evidence is overwhelming, I likely won't be paying alimony at all.
Update 1. Christmas. Christmas was the first full day I spent in my new apartment. I'm still getting the place set up. There are a few things I want to buy, but overall, it already feels like home. I'll be living here for at least the next 2 years. My sons and my older son's girlfriend came over and spent most of the day with me. She brought homemade sweets and cooked a great dinner. I finally had the chance to talk with my boys calmly, something I hadn't done in a long time, and it felt good. My older sister stopped by too, bringing more food and spent a few hours with us. It was the first time in almost a year she saw her nephews. Having them all around kept me stable emotionally. If I'd been alone, I probably would have just gotten drunk until I blacked out. Everyone left around 8 p.m., and afterward I decided to visit Joey and his wife Claudia. I stayed with them for a couple of hours, had a drink, then went home. The next important moment came on December 29th, 2020. Around midday, I got a message from Nina asking if I was free that evening. Of course I was. We agreed to meet after work. She drove over, and we went to a small diner near my office in New York. Restaurants were still running at 25% capacity because of the pandemic, but it wasn't hard to find a table since most people preferred staying home. Once we ordered, Nina laid everything out. I already suspected what she was going to say. She admitted she'd like me since we were teenagers, but never had the chance to say anything because Sue got to me before she ever could. For context, I've known Nina 2 years longer than I've known Sue. Back in school, it was the 4 of us, me, Ozzy, Joey, and Nina. We were the misfits who didn't fit anywhere. Nina struggled with her weight then, was diabetic, and looked like a goth girl straight out of a comic book. Cool, but invisible to guys. Yet we always had chemistry. Now, Nina is a personal trainer and yoga instructor. She went from awkward outsider to, honestly, a stunning woman. So we agreed that once my divorce is finalized, we'll start officially dating. And yes, we slept together that night. She came back to my new place, and we had an amazing time. Do I feel guilty? Not even close. Nina has been a better friend to me than Sue was for almost 25 years. She supported me through everything, and I learned that she even stepped aside back then so I could build a life with Sue. That level of selflessness hit me hard. Maybe it sounds like I'm justifying myself, but to me it felt right, and I want to see where things go with Nina. Now about yesterday, the day I met with my wife and her attorney to discuss the divorce. 2 weeks had passed since I vanished from Sue's life. On Monday, I got a call from her lawyer's office saying they'd scheduled a meeting for January 6th, 2021. The day before the meeting, I met with my attorney to go over my terms. In short, I want a divorce on the grounds of adultery, a full split of marital assets, I sell her my share of the house, she can keep it, we each keep our cars, I keep my cabin in Pennsylvania. Because of her cheating, she gets no spousal support.
Our younger son chooses where he lives, and it'll probably be with me. Then came Wednesday. I walked into my lawyer's office dressed like Johnny Cash. Inside were Sue and her attorney. She looked terrible, completely worn down. I kept a stone-cold face. I won't bore you with the legal back and forth. Her lawyer offered reconciliation terms. I rejected them almost instantly. Eventually, we settled on a separation agreement that will lead to a no-fault divorce. The only change, I'll pay her $653 a month temporarily to cover utilities until she finds a job. Yes, she was fired for her affair, just like the guy she cheated with. My income is high enough that the payment won't hurt me, even if she drags her job search out, and she has enough savings to survive for a while. After a year, she's on her own. Honestly, that's a small price to finally remove her from my life. The divorce should take around 3 months, so by early April, I'll be free. After the meeting, I stepped outside. Sue followed me and asked to talk. I allowed it. She held herself together in the office, but once we were outside, she completely broke down, full meltdown. She apologized over and over, saying she never wanted things to end this way. She said she didn't expect to fall for that guy, but when she thought I'd been cheating on her, she panicked and betrayed me. She asked if I could ever forgive her, and maybe years from now we could try again, because she can't imagine living without me. I told her she'd better start imagining it, because this was the last time she would ever see me or hear my voice. I reminded her that our younger son is old enough to choose his own path. I told her she had half my life and every ounce of love I had, and she threw it away for a fling. I said there was zero chance of forgiveness. Every bit of love I had for her died during the months she whispered, "I love you," to another man instead of telling me our marriage needed help. I told her I loved the woman she used to be, but I hated the person standing in front of me now. She was sobbing on a Manhattan sidewalk, making a scene. People stared, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to humiliate her. I'd already destroyed her social and professional life. I just needed to say what I came to say. Then I put in my earbuds, turned around, and walked away. Later that night, her father called me to apologize. He said he was ashamed of her behavior and thanked me for being a good husband. I'll miss the man. He was like a father to me after my own dad died, but there's no point staying connected to her family now. After the call, I updated my Facebook status to divorced. Yes, it's not legally final yet, but emotionally it's over. People started messaging me right away, and I told them the truth. I filed for divorce because of infidelity. Nina called me immediately, surprised how fast things were moving. She didn't realize how far along everything already was. I asked her to come over, and she did. We slept together again, but this time she stayed the night. We talked until morning, and I haven't felt that kind of connection in years. Nina understands me. I can't get enough of her presence. Some might say I'm moving on too fast. Maybe. But my marriage ended the moment she let another man touch her. I've been emotionally done for a long time. So that's where I am. My divorce is underway. I'm starting something new with Nina. And despite saying once I'd never remarry, that was before Nina told me how she felt, and I can't deny I feel the same. We're taking it slow, and we won't go public until everything with Sue is legally finalized. As for Sue, I don't care what happens to her. She can keep the old house, move her boyfriend in, do whatever. I'll get my half of the money throughout 2021, 4 payments, and I'll never have to see her again. To everyone who's offered support and encouragement, thank you. It means more than you know.
Update 2. My wife almost died yesterday. Last night, something happened that I honestly never expected. Since only my closest friends, my sons, my older sister, and my mother have my new contact information, and since I blocked my wife everywhere, she hasn't had any way to reach me since I disappeared from her life on Christmas Eve. Some of our mutual friends, however, can still contact me. I was in my apartment when I got a message from one of the few mutual friends who didn't turn his back on her after I exposed the affair. When I replied, he told me that he had stopped by to check on her
and found her unconscious in the bedroom, foam at her mouth with 2 empty pill bottles nearby. She's now in the ICU in critical but stable condition. Doctors said she will most likely survive, but she won't be all right for a long time. That friend begged me to come. Her parents and sisters were also at the hospital. I'm guessing they were called because the hospital couldn't reach me due to my old number still being listed as her emergency contact. I simply said no. She is no longer my responsibility. She chose the easy way out instead of facing the consequences of the pain and humiliation she brought on herself by destroying our 23-year marriage. My friend insisted I tell my sons. I did, but made it clear that if they wanted to visit their mother, I wouldn't judge. She is still their mom. But I'm done. They were surprised by how firm I was, but they accepted it. Now that the news has spread, many of the same people who condemned her weeks ago are suddenly full of sympathy, telling me I should be by her side, that despite everything she did, I should support her through this. I was also told her affair partner tried to visit her this morning, but he wasn't allowed in because he isn't family. So now the pressure is on me, but I feel nothing for this woman anymore. Whatever love I had for her died months ago, during the time she was telling another man she loved him. Her actions killed every last emotion I had left. She betrayed me. She chose nearly a year-long affair with someone only 5 years older than our son over our entire life together. And now, instead of dealing with the fallout of her choices, she takes the most selfish route possible. Even now, when she will likely survive, she instantly becomes the victim again. People who condemned her are already forgiving her. Meanwhile, I'm going to be painted as the cold, heartless ex-husband who refused to show up. Her father called me. He apologized, said he respected my decision, and admitted he raised her better. He's the only one who hasn't tried to guilt-trip me. I keep asking myself whether she did this because she truly broke mentally or because she made a calculated, desperate move to win people back. Maybe that sounds cruel, but I honestly don't know this woman anymore. To be clear, I will not go see her. She lost the right to my concern the day she let another man put his hands on her. I know some of you will judge me. I don't care. If you were in my position, you'd see things differently. Some might argue that I caused her breakdown by leaving the way I did, by letting her believe I was cheating on her while she was actively cheating on me. Maybe that contributed, but it doesn't erase her choices. I gave her half my life. She betrayed me entirely for her own selfish reasons. She told me herself I had nothing to do with her decision to cheat. She did it because she wanted to. If refusing to visit her in the hospital makes me a bad person, then so be it. I'm choosing myself now. My responsibility for her ended the day we signed the separation agreement. After 23 years and 2 kids, I realized I never truly knew her. I feel no sympathy. I never will. She can rot in whatever dark pit she's dug for herself. I'm done. Quick update. Her father told me she has been transferred from the ICU to the psychiatric ward. She's conscious and mentally stable enough to speak, but still extremely weak. He also told me she asked whether I came to see her, and when he said no, she looked devastated. He said he'll give me updates only if I ask, out of respect for my boundaries. I also arranged a therapy appointment for my 17-year-old son. His first session is this Monday.
Update 3. The End and Goodbye. Update 3. The End and Goodbye. On April 13th, exactly 1 month ago, Sue officially became my ex-wife. At first, my lawyer told me it would happen on the 18th, but partly because New York started loosening COVID restrictions, everything was finalized a few days earlier. My lawyer Jeff called me on April 12th and asked me to come in the next day. When I arrived, he handed me the notice confirming the completion of the divorce and shook my hand. I couldn't just walk away, so I hugged him and thanked him for everything he had done for me. On the way home, I kept replaying the last 24 years of my life in my head.
every memory, every chapter of our story. When I walked into my apartment, it finally hit me. I collapsed onto the floor, and all the emotions I had been holding inside poured out. I hadn't cried like that in years, but these weren't tears of sadness, not at all. My soul finally felt free after being trapped in the deepest, darkest pit. That evening, I called my older son. I briefly told him everything was finalized, that his mother and I were no longer married. He asked how I felt. I think he could hear in my voice that I had been crying, and I told him I was okay. Then my 17-year-old took the phone, and we talked for almost an hour and a half. My older son and his fiancée are taking great care of him, and he, like me, continues seeing a therapist. I won't go into details, but he still has a lot of work ahead of him, especially regarding how he views relationships. Later that night, Nina came over. I told her the news, and she just wrapped her arms around my waist and held me while I cried again. When I calmed down, she told me that no matter what happens, she will never betray me and will love me with all her heart. I know she meant every word. Some may judge me, but I don't regret the life I built with Sue, despite everything she did. She gave me 2 wonderful sons. But now it's clear I chose the wrong woman. Over the past 4.5 months, Nina has given me so much and asked nothing in return. All she wants is for me to be in her life. After the divorce was finalized, a few unexpected things happened. For example, AK contacted me. Turns out he saw this story after it blew up online and immediately recognized himself in it. The first thing he did was apologize. He told me what happened after his mother received the folder I mailed her. She essentially disowned him. His mother, a deeply devout Catholic who goes to church 3 times a week, went ballistic when she learned her son destroyed a marriage that lasted almost 25 years. She kicked him out that same day, and within a week, when his employer received the folder as well, he was fired. Since then, he's been sleeping on friends' couches and trying to find work. I admit I could have completely destroyed this guy, but I didn't. I asked when he last spoke to Sue. He said months ago. The last time they talked, Sue told him to forget about her and move on. At least on that, she didn't lie. He kept answering my questions, surprisingly honestly. Maybe he was looking for some kind of redemption. Much of what he said matched what I already suspected. The conversation lasted around 20 minutes. He apologized again. I told him this. I'm copying it directly from our messages. You're a 27-year-old man who now has to live knowing your own mother hates you for destroying a marriage almost as old as you are. I know you messaged me because your conscience is eating you alive, but I'm not here to comfort you. When I was 27, I was building a future. You are homeless, jobless, a homewrecker. If you're smart, you'll learn from this. If not, you'll stay a failure until you reach my age, if you even make it that far. I'd wish you luck, but you don't need luck. You need to rebuild your life. Then I ended the conversation and blocked him. It wasn't what he expected, and I could have been crueler, but I think those words will stay with him for a long time. Another important event, as of May 4th, 2021, Nina now carries my last name. For the past 2 months, we talked a lot about where we want our relationship to go. Nina made it clear she won't be with anyone but me and wants to take my name. She wants to be my wife, and she wants me to adopt her daughter, let's call her Anna, as my own. I adore this little girl. She just turned 6 months last month, and she absolutely loves me. I'm the first father figure in her life. Her biological father abandoned them when she was 4. Nina never introduced Anna to any man she dated after her divorce, unless he had long-term potential. Clearly, I do, and I have experience raising kids. By the way, Anna and my younger son get along incredibly well. Their sibling-like bond is sweet and heartwarming. My therapist said this is definitely a good sign. So last Monday, we went to City Hall and made it official. It took 24 hours to get the marriage certificate. Telling everyone was funny, My buddy Ozzy said, "Who would have guessed?" My older sister said, "I'm taking bets on when the baby announcement is coming." We thought we were keeping the relationship a secret, but apparently everyone already figured it out. Yes, some will say we married too quickly. And yes, I said in comments that I'd never get married again. But that was before Nina confessed her feelings to me. She told me through tears of happiness that she never thought she'd have a chance to be with me. She described in detail how she had felt about me for the past 25 years and how, even while married, she regretted that Sue had won. I had no idea how deeply this ran for her. She even admitted she had moments where the thought of an affair crossed her mind, but she refused to become a homewrecker. And through all those years, she gave me so much and asked so little in return. Even the woman I married and had 2 kids with never showed me the kind of love Nina has given me. I'd be a fool not to give her my last name. Now she has it, and we're in the early stages of the adoption process for Anna. As for Sue, I haven't spoken to her since the last time I was in our house almost 4 months ago, but mutual friends occasionally update me. One of them, a realtor, told me he sold the house and he gave her a job as an administrative assistant at his firm. Because of that, he canceled the alimony I was obligated to pay her while she was unemployed. She now lives in a small apartment near the office. He helped her find that too. She's only a shadow of the woman she used to be. She's barely gained any weight back, keeps to herself, goes to work, does her tasks, and talks to no one except that friend. Probably because, as you know, her workplace friendships are what led to everything in the first place. I last heard about her in late March. I thanked the friend for looking after her, but told him I no longer need updates. She's no longer my responsibility. I'm sure she already knows about Nina and I, since some mutual friends have commented on it. And since my youngest will be an adult in a year, I have no reason to ever speak to her again. And I won't. That's it. My story is over. I sincerely thank everyone who wished me well.
I raised my daughter for 15 years before I found out my wife had cheated on me and that I wasn't her biological father. It's been 4 years since then. I thought I had finally processed it, moved past it, but last weekend proved I was wrong. Everything I'd buried came rushing back. The same rage I felt back then hit me like a truck. Even though I went home to my fiancé afterward, the anger toward my ex-wife hasn't faded. I spent years in anger management classes because of what that whole situation did to me. I truly believed it was behind me. I'm 39 now. I was 18 when I met my ex, Marisol. Back then, I was part of the El Ting Kings. I joined at 13 and stayed neck-deep in trouble for years. Marisol, on the other hand, was a church girl. My grandmother dragged me to Sunday service, and the moment I saw Marisol, I fell hard. I begged my cousin, who was her friend, to introduce us. He refused. He said he didn't want me ruining her life. And honestly, I understood him. Have you ever met someone who makes you want to be better? Someone who makes you want to walk the straight path? That was her. When I found out she went to church almost every day, I started waiting for her on the steps, walking her there and back, just talking. With her, I felt like I wasn't worthless. Eventually, we started dating, and for the first time in my life, things felt right. For a year and a half, I kept away from the gang. I finished school, went to church, started imagining a future. Then I got pulled back in. I was at a store when I ran into a guy I'd had problems with before. He started talking trash. I tried to ignore him. I swear I walked away. But he shoved me in the back and I snapped. I beat him badly. I was arrested, and suddenly everything I had worked so hard for just evaporated. Marisol was furious. My grandmother lectured me non-stop. My cousin said he always knew I wouldn't change. My public defender saw that I was trying to turn my life around, and by some miracle, he got me released after a month. Even though she was angry, Marisol came to visit me almost every day. A month after I got out, I found out she was pregnant. I didn't want my child growing up with a father who was either dead or in prison, so we ran off and got married. I enrolled in a trade program for auto mechanics and worked myself to the bone for our future. When Luna was born, it was both the best and worst day of my life. Marisol wouldn't stop bleeding. She went into shock and needed an emergency hysterectomy. She spent months in the hospital. In that time, Luna became my whole world. I wanted to give her everything, absolutely everything. When Marisol finally came home, I swore our daughter would live a better life than we ever did. And for many years, I kept that promise. I saved enough money to move us to the suburbs, bought a house, put Luna in a private school, taught her to defend herself, tried to be the perfect husband. I didn't know my parents, didn't have any good father figures, so I learned how to be a dad from TV shows and movies. It sounds stupid, but it's all I had. Years passed. I opened my own garage. My cousin became a pastor. My grandmother still nagged me, and my marriage to Marisol was stronger than ever. But Luna hated me. From the moment she turned 13, something changed. She didn't want hugs, rolled her eyes when I said I loved her, ignored me when I asked about her day. It hurt a lot, and Marisol saw it. She kept saying Luna was just being a teenager, that she'd grow out of it. For 2 years, it was like that. So when her quinceañera came, the big 15th birthday celebration, I wanted it to be perfect. I gave her everything she asked for, but she was still cold. At one point, the old version of me, the one I worked so hard to kill, almost came out. But instead of yelling, I went to my cousin. I told him my fears, that I was failing as a father. He told me to give her space and prayed for me. I wanted to make a slideshow for the father-daughter dance. I gathered our old photos, but realized I didn't have any recent ones. She refused to take pictures with me. The last ones where we were both smiling were from her 13th birthday, stored on her broken tablet. I took it to a repair shop and didn't care how much it cost. I just wanted the pictures. They fixed it for $300. I was thrilled. I knew her password, but I had never snooped before. I only wanted the pictures. They were there, my little girl smiling next to me. For a second, I felt relief. Then, the notifications popped up. Messages between my daughter and my wife. Long conversations about how she didn't even want to dance with me. It hurt, but I tried to shrug it off. Teenagers, right? And then I read the message that destroyed me. Luna wrote, "Why should I dance with him? He's not even my father." My heart stopped. My vision went dark. My mouth was dry. I had to sit down. My wife replied saying that I raised her, that I loved her, and that made her my father. But then Luna said the words that shattered my world. That her real father was my cousin, and she couldn't wait until she turned 18 so she could finally tell me and move in with him. She wrote that she hated me. Thank God he wasn't my father. Marisol tried scolding her, saying my cousin had made a mistake telling her the truth 2 years earlier. The more I read, the hotter the rage burned. My wife had lied to me for 15 years. My cousin, the man I trusted, the man I confided in about being a bad father, had not only slept with my wife, but let me raise his child. I wanted to hurt them. I felt everything at once: anger, grief, emptiness. I wanted to scream, cry, and die at the same time. To keep myself from doing something stupid, I told Marisol I needed to focus on work to cover the quinceañera costs. Instead, I drove straight to Manhattan to see my old public defender, who wasn't a public defender anymore. He now had an expensive law firm in Midtown.
He looked surprised to see me, but it turned out I was his very first client as a defense lawyer. We sat down, and I told him everything. I handed him my tablet. As soon as he turned it on, new messages were still coming in. This time, Luna was texting my cousin, her real father. He was begging her to give me another chance, saying I had always been there for her. But Luna replied that he had always been there too, that things were finally falling into place and that they had so much in common. She called him Dad several times, and he kept replying that she was his little girl. We went over every possible option. And then he asked me, "What do you want?" I told him I wanted scorched earth.
I wanted every single one of them destroyed. He asked me more than once if I was sure, and I nodded every time. I also told him everything had to be finished before Luna's 15th birthday, 2 weeks away. We sat together for 12 straight hours, planning every step. I followed every one of his instructions to the letter. I secretly put my business up for sale, called her private school and told them I wouldn't be paying for the next year, closed the college fund and every savings account I had set up for Luna, prepared the house for listing. No one suspected a thing. It was flawless. Well, almost. There was one thing I did my way. Luna's birthday party went off perfectly. No hints of trouble. The whole family came. Luna laughed and smiled. Marisol kept asking if I was okay, and I lied to her every time. It was torture. For 2 weeks, every time I kissed her or held her, I had to fight the urge to scream, to hate her. She knowingly let me raise another man's child. She slept with my cousin, the man I treated like a brother, the godfather of my child, the best man at my wedding, my confidant. Holding that rage inside felt impossible. When it was time for the father-daughter dance, I called Luna to the floor. She looked annoyed, but came anyway. The music started, and she smiled. And that smile, the one I once dreamed of seeing again, now filled me with anger. As we danced, a slideshow played, photos of me and her through the years, and then, at the end, screenshots of her messages with her mother and her real father. The room exploded. Marisol went pale like she'd seen a ghost. Luna froze, staring at the giant screen. My cousin looked at me in absolute horror. Marisol ran to me, saying she could explain. I told her I had already filed for divorce. She grabbed my hand, begging, but I pulled away. I turned to Luna and told her that I had broken my back my whole life to give her everything, and she didn't deserve any of it. Then I headed toward the exit, but not before telling my cousin that every time I saw him from now on, I'd knock him out. Then I hit him. What followed was brutal. Marisol and Luna moved in with my grandmother. Marisol's family was horrified. They wanted nothing to do with her. Her father, a man who had always despised me, even apologized. I still don't know why. He hated me even back when I was saving their family from ruin. But now, with the truth out, he suddenly decided I had been the perfect husband and father. My grandmother had the nerve to bring up the story of Abraham, the warrior who returned from battle after 3 years to find his wife with a child and chose to raise that child as his own. She told me to do the same. I told her to get the hell out of my house. A few days later, Marisol showed up crying, saying it had all been one mistake, that when I got arrested back then, she'd been furious and my cousin was just there to comfort her, that one thing led to another, that it happened only once, that she'd been faithful ever since. She even offered to take a lie detector test. I asked her how long she'd known Luna wasn't mine. Her face gave everything away. She had known from the very beginning. I told her to get out. She begged for family therapy, said I was overreacting, said we could fix everything, that it was all in the past, that I needed to accept it, that I was still Luna's father no matter what. I lost it. I must have shouted "accept it" 20 times. Threw her things out of the house, called her a lying whore, told her I never wanted to see her face again, told her that the life I had built no longer belonged to her. Then I shoved her out the door. Weeks passed. She kept calling. Luna didn't. Not once. Marisol was stunned when she learned I had sold the business, and even more shocked when she found out I'd scheduled an open house for selling the home.
She stormed in, screaming, chasing away the buyers, begging me to stop, said I was destroying our marriage, that I had no right to sell our house, the house where we raised our child. I told her the house was filled with lies, that it was the house where I raised someone else's child, and that once I sold it, she'd get her half, and then I wanted her gone. If she had played the victim for even a second, the cops would have taken me away. But she didn't. She just walked out. Later, my cousin showed up to talk. I dropped him with one punch, dragged him outside, and shut the door. No more negotiations. Marisol wanted to save the marriage. I didn't. My lawyer filed for an expedited divorce. 3 months later, we were in court. The judge, a woman, turned out to be incredibly fair. Marisol's lawyer tried bringing up my past, my gang ties, as proof I was a bad husband and father. The judge shut him down instantly. My lawyer presented all the evidence and proposed a one-time alimony payout after the house and business sold. Marisol begged me to reconsider, but I ignored her. Eventually, she realized nothing would change and agreed. But the real shock came during the child support discussion. My lawyer showed the court the messages between Luna and Marisol, proof that Luna not only knew I wasn't her father, but was excited to leave for her real dad, thrilled she wouldn't have to live a lie anymore. Marisol broke down. Then my lawyer filed a petition to remove my name from the birth certificate, delete my last name from hers, and relieve me of all financial responsibility, since all parties acknowledged that my cousin was her biological father. Marisol nearly collapsed. She screamed, begged me not to do it, said I was her father because I raised her. And the sad truth is, if Luna hadn't treated me the way she did, if she hadn't said those things, I might have agreed.
There were moments when I genuinely wanted to try fixing everything, but each time I remembered her messages, to her friends, to her real father, to her mother, my resolve came back instantly. Even now, I'm not sure what hurts more, the betrayal from a woman I once believed was the love of my life, or realizing that the child I dedicated my entire world to threw me away like I was nothing. The judge read through the messages in complete silence, page after page. Eventually, she agreed. I was freed from any financial responsibility for Luna, and my name was removed from her documents. My attorney also filed a motion to demand child support from my cousin and sued him for fraud for letting me raise his daughter without contributing a single dollar. It was a bold move, but the judge approved it. Not once did I look at Marisol when the verdict was read. I didn't listen to her cries when I walked out of that courtroom. I didn't care anymore about her tears, about her begging, about the excuses that it was just one mistake and that she had been faithful ever since. None of it mattered. A few weeks later, my ex called me, shocked that I had stopped paying for Luna's private school and all her extracurriculars. I told her to ask Luna's real father and hung up. Even Luna called me for the first time since everything fell apart. She was crying, saying she'd have to go to a regular school now, that they were moving back to an old neighborhood, that she was scared, that she wanted us to be a family again. I told her to call the man she chose as her father. I yelled at her, told her I knew she'd been aware of the truth for years, told her I had read every message, told her she had thanked the universe that I wasn't her father, and that I hung up. I've lost count of how many times I imagined ending my cousin, but instead I made him pay. He transferred $500,000 to me, money that belonged only to me, and not a single cent to my ex, since she had already agreed to a lump sum settlement. I didn't care that he stole the money from church funds. I was broken. After that, I left New York. I moved to Idaho, picked a random state on the map, and drove. I opened a new auto shop, bought a house, but for 2 years I trusted no one. 2 years of therapy, anger management, and breaking things in rage rooms. It was rough. Eventually, I started going to church again. Ironically, that's where I met my fiancée. Jocelyn is incredible. She had just turned 30, and we connected instantly. I told her everything, every painful detail, and explained that trust would always be an issue for me. She understood. A year later, she told me we were expecting a baby and insisted on a DNA test so I could have peace of mind. I had forgotten what happiness felt like, but when my son was born, I felt it again. For the first time in years, I called my grandmother. She cried when I told her she had a great-grandson and begged me to come to New York because she was 90 and didn't know how much time she had left. I agreed. We flew to New York, rented a car, and went to the old neighborhood. The thing I hate most about the ghetto, one person recognizes you, and 5 minutes later, everyone knows. Grandma met my son, met Jocelyn. I planned to stay a week, show Jocelyn the city. She'd never been to New York. I wanted it to be special. Yeah, right. First, my ex screamed my name from outside. I looked out the window and barely recognized her. She had gained a lot of weight. Grandma told me in Spanish to talk to her, and Jocelyn agreed. I went outside. For a few minutes, we stood in silence, and the anger came back instantly. Marisol said she looked good, and that she, on the other hand, looked terrible. She said she missed me, that she had nobody after the divorce because I kept ignoring her. And then she had the nerve to say I was now a grandfather. I stared at her. It turns out Luna had gotten involved with a decent guy and got pregnant at 18. He joined the Marines to support the family, and her real father refused to speak to her. He just pays child support and nothing else. He's no longer a pastor. He works at a bank a couple blocks away. And then Marisol said Luna named the baby after me. I felt sick. She wanted me to wait because Luna was on her way to see me. I turned around and left. Went back to Grandma's. Jocelyn didn't need an explanation. She saw everything on my face. We left in a lift. I told her what happened, and she smiled and said everything would be okay. But I couldn't forget the look Marisol gave her, like she was some intruder. And without hesitation, she introduced our son and said, "Meet his biological child." It was a knife to the heart, but she knew how badly I'd been hurt. Marisol tried to stop me, said Luna regretted everything. Jocelyn wanted me to try reconnecting, but I was too angry. I got into the car, ignored Marisol's begging, and Jocelyn told me to take a first step, so I gave my number for Luna to call and drove off. At a red light, I saw my cousin at a food cart. I don't know what came over me. I got out of the car, ran up to him, and beat him. Jocelyn screamed for me to stop. When we locked eyes, I saw fear in hers. I spat on him and walked away. Now I'm home, working, raising my son, preparing for my wedding with an amazing woman. But after that trip, whenever I'm alone with my thoughts, the anger creeps back in. Luna messaged me, a picture of her smiling with her son. She said she was sorry, but I don't know for what. Is she sorry she lost me? Or sorry that the man she chose as her real father wasn't who she imagined? I'm confused. I'm scared to reach out. I want to let it go. I want to move on. Family was everything to me, and my daughter was my whole world. But even after all these years, the pain doesn't fade. I'm still angry. People tell me to give her a second chance, but in my head I still hear those messages, the lies, the betrayal. I need help. My usual ways of coping don't work anymore. Thanks for listening. Believe me or not, I honestly don't care. But if you have advice, I'd appreciate it.
What would you advise the author to do next? Honestly, I'm not even sure what I would do in his place. But from the outside, it seems logical that he should at least try to talk to his daughter. Yes, she behaved terribly. Yes, she was wrong many times, that's clear. But he raised her for so many years, and a conversation feels like the bare minimum. and only after that decide whether to cut contact completely or try to rebuild something. Though if I'm being honest, after reading her messages, I'm not sure I'd be able to take that step myself. And you? Now let's move to the next update to see what happened. Update 1. Yesterday was Father's Day. Luna tried calling me several times. I stared at the phone, wanted to pick up, but just couldn't. All I could think about were the things she'd said to her mother, to her biological father, to her friends. So I ignored every call. Eventually, I listened to her voice message. She sounded cheerful, too cheerful. Apologized quickly for everything, but it didn't feel sincere. It felt like something she said out of obligation. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but that's how it sounded to me. She talked about her son, her fiancé, and asked me to call her back. A simple request, yet it infuriated me. My grandmother and my fiancé insist that I should give her a chance. But when I asked Grandma whether Luna ever asked about me during the 4 years after I left, she admitted that only Marisol had constantly asked. Luna hadn't. That planted a bitter thought in my mind. Maybe she wants me back in her life only for the sake of her child, so I would provide for him. Maybe she just wants to get whatever she can get out of me. And that thought made me even angrier. Even Marisol keeps calling non-stop. I'm already considering changing my number. So I spent all Father's Day at the gym beating the punching bag. Today I have my anger management group meeting. Maybe they'll give me a clearer perspective. Update 2. I sent Luna a short letter with just one question. What do you want? I didn't expect a long reply, but she sent one. She started with endless apologies. She said that when she first learned I wasn't her biological father, all she felt was rage. She demanded an explanation from her mother, who broke down and begged Luna not to tell me the truth. Luna felt betrayed and drifted toward my cousin, her biological father. He told her everything about my past, about things I had hidden from her when she was younger. It only fueled her anger, and the more they talked, the further she pulled away from me. On her 15th birthday, while we were dancing, she suddenly realized how foolish she had been acting. She understood how much I loved her. But then her old messages appeared on her screen, and everything fell apart again. Her relatives on her mother's side convinced her that I simply needed time, so she backed off. She watched her family fall apart because of her, but couldn't fix anything. She said she understood why I made the choice I did. Her grandfather kept telling her that I loved her, that I had raised her as my daughter no matter the DNA. He believed I would eventually do the right thing. During the divorce, her mother fell into a deep depression, barely spoke to Luna, rarely ate. She just existed. When Luna learned my name was removed from her birth certificate, she had a panic attack. Her mother told her they would have to move back to Brooklyn. When Luna asked what would happen to her school, her friends, her life, her mother said, "That life was a gift from your father, but he's not your father anymore." That's when Luna called me, begging, and I yelled at her and hung up. She cried for days. She tried turning to my cousin, but he ignored her too. When she went to church to look for him, he told her to leave and called her a mistake. Her mother shut herself in her room, coming out only for the bathroom or a shower. Luna begged her grandfather to take her to see me. They drove to Long Island only to find out that I had already moved out. His grandfather promised to find out my new address through my grandmother. Those 2 years, according to her, were absolute hell. Everyone in the neighborhood knew what happened. Her biological father avoided her as much as possible and tried to get out of paying child support. Only after her grandfather threatened him did he start paying. Her mother still barely spoke to her, and on the rare occasions she did, called her ungrateful and blamed her for ruining her life. Her grandfather snapped back, telling her mother she ruined her own life with her affair. After that, she locked herself in her room again. Luna spent very little time at home. That's how she met the father of her child, a boy her age working at a small corner shop. A few months later, she got pregnant. Her grandfather was furious, but the boy promised he would marry her, which calmed things down slightly. Luna said her pregnancy was a blessing in disguise. Her mother finally started talking to her again, even went with her to doctor appointments. Her boyfriend enlisted in the Marines. He wanted them to marry before his deployment, but Luna insisted on having a real wedding. He wasn't against naming her son after me. His own father had abandoned him, and his name reminded him of that rejection. When Luna heard I was back in town, she sped to my grandmother's house as fast as she could. She wanted to apologize, to see me, to show him her son. She just wanted to see me in person. But she was too late. Her mother gave her my new number, and she wanted to call immediately, but the whole neighborhood was gossiping about how I beat up her biological father, and she decided to wait. Her mother was devastated when she learned I had moved on, started a new family, had a son. Luna, on the other hand, was genuinely happy to learn she had a little brother.
Her mother, however, fell into an even deeper depression. I actually felt sorry for Marisol. After reading Luna's letter, I called her and asked if it was true she had ignored our daughter for years and blamed her for the divorce. She admitted it. At first, I yelled at her, but when I heard her sobbing on the phone, I forced myself to calm down. I told her she needed to move forward, find someone new, but she refused. She said I was her husband and always would be. I couldn't help but pity her. After that, I asked my grandmother to check on my cousin. The moment he heard my voice on the phone, he broke down crying and begged me for forgiveness. I asked him only one question. Why didn't you ever become a father to Luna? Why did you turn her against me? His answer was simple and disgusting. Jealousy. I loved Marisol, and you took her from me. When I was arrested years ago, he comforted her, manipulated her, twisted her emotions. It only took him a few moments to push her into a mistake she later regretted. When she found out she was pregnant, they both knew exactly whose child it was. They planned to keep it secret forever. Marisol later saw her hysterectomy as divine punishment for infidelity and lies. When Luna turned 13, my cousin got drunk and saw the life I had built, a real home, a loving wife, a child. And jealousy is a sin he never managed to shake off. He wanted to destroy everything I had. And in the end, he succeeded. I told him, when we meet again in hell, I'll be your eternal torment, and hung up. Jaslyn was beside me the whole time. She squeezed my hand and said everything would be okay. Update 3. A lot has happened in a short time. Again, thank you to everyone who reached out. Yes, there were haters too, but I'll say this. What you think you would do and what I lived through are not the same. Unless you've experienced something like this, don't tell me how I should have felt. Before the wedding, I was tense. Jaslyn was glowing. Her family was panicking because of how many guests were coming. It felt like the entire town showed up. While all this was happening, I was more than an hour away from home, waiting at the airport for Luna and her family to arrive. The day before their flight, Luna and I talked for a long time. Mostly, she cried and apologized, and I just listened. When she couldn't speak anymore, I talked to her fiancé, who turned out to be a grounded, respectful kid. When their plane finally landed, I was terrified. Not of seeing her, but of my own anger. I was scared I wouldn't be able to control it. But the moment Luna saw me in the arrivals hall, she sprinted toward me, screaming, "Dad!" For a split second, I saw my little 7-year-old girl again. It felt surreal looking at a grown woman, but seeing a child in my mind. She clung to me, sobbing into my shoulder. She kept repeating, "I'm sorry," again and again, refusing to let go. I held her for more than 15 minutes. Her fiancé and I practically had to convince her to loosen her grip,
as if she thought I'd disappear again the moment she let go. When she calmed down a bit, her fiancé introduced himself properly. Then they showed me the baby. I won't lie, I cried. I wasn't angry anymore, just overwhelmed. Holding that little child broke something open inside me. And Luna looked exactly like her mother at 19, which made me think of Marisol again. On the drive home, her fiancé and I talked about the army, about Luna studying accounting online, just catching up on years we had lost. When we got home, Jaslyn and her family had prepared an entire feast. Ever since we got together, she'd been learning to cook Spanish food, but the week before Luna's arrival, she completely outdid herself. I understood. She wanted to make a good impression. Jaslyn and Luna clicked instantly. Every few minutes, Luna would run up to me, give me a quick hug, and go back to chatting with Jaslyn. And I just stood there, holding my son and my grandson. After putting the kids to bed, I stepped outside for some air. Luna's fiancé, his name is Roberto, was standing near the edge of the yard, staring at the bison grazing nearby. For a moment, I wanted to give him the standard father speech, but I realized I had no right. Instead, I asked him if he liked the view. He said he was amazed, and I understood. When you grow up in the city, open space feels unreal. A minute later, he said quietly, "Luna regrets everything. I've been with her for 3 years, and there's not a single day she doesn't talk about missing you or wishing she could undo what she did." Out of everything he said, that line is what stuck with me the most. He's only 19, but talks and carries himself like someone much older. Life forced him to grow up early, and that's always painful. The next day, I had to stop by the workshop, and Luna practically leapt into the truck, baby and all. Even Roberto told her to relax and just enjoy your time with me. She looked like she was about to hyperventilate from anxiety. I told her I'd work only half a day and spend the rest of it with her. That calmed her a bit, and I began to understand just how hurt she really was. On the drive, I asked Roberto how bad things were. He said she had serious emotional issues, constant fear he would leave her, even though he reassures her all the time. She called him too often, panicked when alone, clung to him at the beginning of their relationship because she was terrified he'd abandon her. He said he has to reassure her love constantly just to help her breathe normally. That's on me. I know it. But Roberto doesn't blame me. He said he understands why I reacted the way I did. For the record, Roberto is a terrible mechanic. He doesn't know anything about cars, so I put him to work organizing the shop to pay off the plane tickets. We closed early, and when we got back home, Luna ran straight to me again. She looked like she was on the edge of falling apart. I told her I'd be right back, and she went to Roberto. Inside, Jaslyn immediately told me Luna needed reassurance. She needed to know I wouldn't leave her again. I didn't know what to say, but Jaslyn took my hands and told me Luna was hurting and she needed her father. For the next few days, I spent every moment with her, relearning how to be a father to her. I took her to the ranch to meet my relatives, showed her the bison and deer, and even took her hiking. 2 days before the wedding, I apologized to her for leaving, for how I acted, for the choices I made, but she didn't want to hear it. She said I had nothing to apologize for, that she knew she was the reason everything fell apart, that it was all her fault, and I had to stop her. I broke down and cried. I told her it wasn't her fault. Yes, I was hurt. Yes, I was angry, but I should have handled it differently. We both cried, and for the first time, Luna looked a little lighter.
On my wedding day, she radiated happiness. At the last minute, Jaslyn made her a bridesmaid, and Roberto became the best man. The wedding was beautiful. During the reception, I asked the DJ to play the same song from Luna's 15th birthday and invited her for a dance. She cried through the entire dance, clinging to me as if I could disappear at any moment. I hadn't felt this happy in years. After the wedding, I left Luna and our fiancé at our home so they could take care of her younger brother, while Jaslyn and I went on our honeymoon to Hawaii.
When we returned, they greeted us with hugs, and it felt incredible. Roberto told me he was being deployed to Afghanistan and asked if Luna could stay with us. He offered to pay rent for an apartment nearby until he could buy a house. Of course, I said yes. They returned to the city a few days ago. As I mentioned before, the past few months have been very full. Luna's wedding was in November, and Roberto's deployment is in December. He already sent me enough money to cover a year's rent for an apartment 5 kilometers from my house. Jaslyn, however, suggested we put a mobile home on our property for Luna so she could save for her own home by the time Roberto returns. Marisol has been constantly calling me. Judging by her messages, she's furious that Luna is moving. But my priority is my family and rebuilding my relationship with my daughter. Update 4. Possibly the last one. I waited until Luna returned from her honeymoon to show her this post. Our psychologist insisted on full transparency. I wanted to be able to share the details, since this concerns not only me, but her as well. She read the post, though I didn't let her see the hateful comments, considering how much she cried reading it. But she didn't object to me posting another update. Then tragedy struck. My grandmother passed away, delaying this update. Here's what happened since then. Jaslyn and I set up the mobile home on our property for Luna and Roberto. Many wondered why Jaslyn insisted on reconciliation in the first place. Initially, she simply didn't want my lingering anger to affect our family, and she wanted me to reconcile with myself for all of us. I'm grateful for that. As I mentioned, Marisol constantly called me. On the day Luna left New York, I finally answered. She cried and yelled, blaming me for taking her daughter and grandson. I tried explaining I just wanted to rebuild my relationship with Luna, but within seconds she demanded when I would reconcile with her. I had to tell her that wouldn't happen. She sobbed and hung up. Luna and Roberto were thrilled with their new home. The first thing Roberto did was begin reimbursing me for everything. I told him it wasn't necessary, but he insisted, and I appreciated that. A few days later, Luna and I had our first joint therapy session. I learned that Luna takes numerous anxiety medications and suffers from chronic panic attacks. One thing I can share from our sessions is that Luna truly regrets the past. She endured years of verbal and emotional abuse from her mother. My cousin destroyed her psyche, and as painful as it is to admit, I hurt her too. 2 weeks after moving in, Roberto got word of an early deployment, forcing them to reschedule the wedding. At first, Luna wanted to wait for his return, but Roberto insisted they marry before he left. Jaslyn and I offered to pay for the wedding, but Luna said she only wanted one thing, for me to walk her down the aisle. Many suggested I should do a DNA test, since the court never did one. Everything relied solely on circumstantial evidence. Honestly, it's unnecessary. Luna's blood type is A+, mine is O-, Marisol's is B+, my cousin's is A+. Biologically, she isn't mine, but she is my daughter in every sense that matters. I only regret that my anger blinded me from realizing it sooner. The wedding was meant to be small, held at Jaslyn's family ranch. We invited my former father-in-law, Roberto's mother, my grandmother, and Marisol. Only 2 responded. My grandmother couldn't come due to poor health, and Marisol ended up in the hospital because of her own actions. Luna took the news hard. I was furious at Marisol for expecting Luna to return to New York and care for her. A few weeks before Luna's wedding, I learned I was going to be a father again, and I was overjoyed. Roberto learned firsthand how difficult it is to tame a horse, and I started teaching him about cars again. I like this kid. The day before the wedding, my former father-in-law arrived with Roberto's mother. She turned out to be a very kind woman, and I praised her for raising such a good son. My father was, as always, reserved, but he told me he had been disappointed I left, though he understood given the circumstances. The only thing he wished was for his daughter to finally let go of the past.
On the wedding day, Jaslyn was Luna's bridesmaid, and I struggled not to cry while walking her down the aisle. It was hard, and for her, even harder. During the reception, we played our father-daughter song again, and once more, she clung to me. For those asking, the song was Cinderella by Stephen Curtis Chapman. After their honeymoon, life slowly returned to normal, and I was preparing this update. A few days before their return, my grandmother passed away. It hit me harder than I could have imagined. She was not just my grandmother, she was a mother to me. I never knew my parents. They died in a car accident when I was only a few months old. My cousin's parents also died in that accident. My grandmother raised us both. Preparing for the trip to New York for the funeral, I tried to brace myself, mentally ready to see my cousin. We went as a family, but even at the funeral, with my wife, daughter, and son-in-law by my side, I felt no anger. I ignored my cousin. He tried to talk to me, practically begging me to yell at him or hit me, but I simply ignored him. For some reason, that hurt him more than if I had struck him. A few days before leaving Idaho, Luna and I visited Marisol in the hospital.
She was happy to see us, upset that she had missed the wedding, and at first it seemed like everything was okay. But when it was time to leave, she broke down in tears, begging the nurses to let her go home to me. She said I was the love of her life, that I was her husband, that she had nowhere to go without me. I just cried as they took her away. Luna couldn't hold back either. She started crying too, and it took us some time to pull ourselves together and leave. Later, my ex-father-in-law told us that after the divorce, Marisol never really recovered. She still marked my birthday and our anniversary. He scolded her, trying to convince her to move on, but she wouldn't. She isolated herself from everyone and was verbally harsh toward Luna for a long time. Luna's pregnancy helped pull her out of that state, but 13 months of good relations don't erase 4 years of neglect and abuse. He hopes the hospital will help her. Jaslyn told me that I needed to forgive Marisol so that she could forgive herself. Right now, as I write this, things are more or less okay. Roberto flew to Saudi Arabia a week ago, and Luna is pretending to hold it together, but she's really struggling. She literally won't leave me and Jaslyn's side. I thought it might bother Jaslyn, but she enjoys spending time with Luna. She's a wonderful woman. She takes Luna everywhere around town, introducing her to people as if she were her own daughter. I was worried that Luna might find it uncomfortable, but she was happy. I have forgiven Marisol and hope she finds the strength to move forward. Update 5. 1 year later. Before I start, I want to thank all of you, even the haters. A year ago when I wrote my first post, I was in a dark place. Constant anger, confusion, depression. People here really helped me. This community helped me get my daughter back. You all helped me get my life back. Last year has been great, though not without its ups and downs. I had another son, and Jaslyn wants to try for another child. I'm going to be a grandfather again. My son Luna is 2 months pregnant. My son-in-law applied for officer training, and I hope he gets accepted. Luna is gradually improving. After her psychologist began exposure therapy, at first her panic attacks worsened, but then they started to ease. Our joint sessions with Luna were difficult at first. I had to hear everything she went through. She admitted her mistakes, and I admitted mine. Now my relatives at the ranch are teaching Luna farm work. She feeds the horses, spreads the hay, and my mother-in-law teaches her how to herd cattle. My heart warms when I see her on horseback because in those moments she shines with happiness. She and Jaslyn act like mother and daughter. Seeing Jaslyn care for her, it's incredible. I am blessed to be married to such a wonderful woman. When I met her, she had just gotten out of an abusive relationship. She had a black eye and marks on her neck. I offered to repair 3 tractors of her father's for free, which her ex had sabotaged by putting salt and sugar in the tanks. At first I kept my distance, but she brought me food and we talked, got to know each other. A month later, we kissed for the first time. It was wonderful. I invited her to dinner, and a few days later her ex came to intimidate me, but in the end, he got scared himself. In the first week of May, my ex-father-in-law passed away.
I feared Luna would fall into depression again, but she was strong. It's all thanks to Roberto. This man had a huge impact on her life, and I can never thank him enough for that. We all flew to New York for the funeral. On his casket, draped with the Puerto Rican flag, there was a banner that read, "Don't mourn me, celebrate my life." He was dressed in his vanilla-colored suit. I couldn't help but smile the whole time. Marisol was there, but she just stared into space as if her brain had shut off. But then, whenever Luna or I sat near her, she would start talking and then shut down again. On the second day of the funeral, her psychotherapist told me that Marisol was stuck in the moment when she was happy. When Luna stepped aside, she told me that, in her professional opinion, my cousin could have assaulted Marisol. Her mind had protected her from the trauma, rationalizing everything and making her believe it was just a moment of weakness. This threw me off balance. I told Jaslyn what the therapist said, and she was shocked. She insisted that I should tell Luna, but I was scared. She had taken so many steps forward, and I didn't want her to break again. Instead, we first spoke with Roberto. He wanted to find my cousin immediately, but I stopped him. Then we all sat down as a family and told Luna, it was a horrible night, a very bad night. 2 days later, during the funeral, an incident occurred. My cousin showed up uninvited and made a scene. He was drunk. I had one desire, to end him. Instead, I told him to leave. Roberto held me back, and my cousin started shouting that he had always been better than me and always would be, that it was thanks to him and his daughter that I had changed my life, so essentially he deserved gratitude. I got so angry that I literally lifted Roberto, trying to reach my cousin, but before I could do anything, Luna punched him in the face and started beating him. She screamed, cried, and furiously hit him. I froze for a second. Roberto pulled her away. When my cousin tried to get up, Jaslyn punched him and knocked him out, breaking her finger. Before going home, we had a family conversation and decided to transfer Marisol to a psychiatric clinic closer to us, as she has no one else. We continue therapy sessions. Now Luna is trying to come to terms with the thought that she may be the result of rape. Previously, I had planned to legally adopt her again, since I am no longer her father in the eyes of the law. But now is not the time. I will answer all questions. I owe a lot to this community. God bless you. Update 6. How things are going. Hello everyone. A lot of time has passed and I want to express my gratitude. My family continues to grow. I already have 2 grandchildren, a boy and a girl, 2 sons, and another daughter on the way. For a while I was plagued by guilt. I fell into a mild depression after learning what happened during Marifol's hypnotherapy. She said no twice, then froze for almost minutes, begging him to stop. Only after that did my cousin finish and get off her. The therapist said that after this, Marisol curled up into a ball and kept repeating, over and over again, "It's my fault." She convinced herself it was just a mistake.
This thought wouldn't leave me alone. I blamed myself, blamed my cousin, replayed possible scenarios in my head. What if, should I have done something? I convinced myself that my cousin was right, that it was me who destroyed her. I tried to recall any detail that might hint that something was wrong. I hadn't noticed it before, but now everything was crystal clear. When he was in the house, she never stayed alone with him. Over the next few months, Luna and I attended family therapy with Marisol. Like many of you, the therapist asked me, what would I have done if Marisol had told me the truth when I got out of prison? Honestly, I would have killed him. If she had confessed a few years later, I would have beaten him half to death. And if she had said, on Luna's 15th birthday, at first I wouldn't have believed her, but then I would have dug deeper, looked for confirmation, asked questions. In the state I was in then, I would have sent my cousin to the hospital, but I wouldn't have left town. Things would have turned out differently. Over time, Marisol became more reasonable. She cried, apologized to me and Luna. Later, she admitted that after the surgery, realizing she couldn't have a child with me, she devoted herself to being the perfect wife and partner. And when I left, she could no longer see Luna as my daughter. She only saw my cousin. I asked her why she continued letting him into our home. She said that, in a way, He was like a brother to me. I had been proud of him, especially when he became a pastor. I'd always spoken well of him and gone to him for advice. And in her mind, he was just a mistake, a fleeting misstep, so she avoided him as much as she could. After all these conversations, Luna's panic attacks returned, stronger this time, but now she's doing better. Last month, I officially adopted her again. It was my gift to her for her birthday. She couldn't stop crying and looked happier than ever. As for my cousin, I heard he moved to Puerto Rico after being fired. The bank couldn't keep him on because too many people were coming in and causing scenes. We set up a new trailer next to Luna's house for Marisol. She was discharged in mid-March, and at first, everyone felt very awkward. I had seen many movies and TV shows where an ex and a current spouse coexist peacefully, but this is real life. Jaslyn was polite, but immediately set boundaries. However, Marisol said she didn't want to live on our property. She wanted to be nearby, but was content being a mother and grandmother. She wanted us to remain friends, but at a distance, and I respect that. A few times, Jaslyn and Marisol clashed, mostly over child rearing and cooking habits. My relatives, like me, felt awkward about the situation. And it's complicated further because my wife's brother clearly has a thing for Marisol. Jaslyn even slapped him on the back of the head to snap him out of it, but to no avail. My brother-in-law is 2 years older than me, a widower raising 3 daughters for 2 years. He's a great person, but now he's at our property too often under the pretense of wanting to talk to Marisol. This doesn't bother me, unlike Jaslyn. She's very protective of her brother and worries that if they start dating, it might not be genuine. I understand her point of view. On Luna's birthday, a small incident happened. After I handed her the adoption papers, we danced together. Then I danced with Jaslyn, and later, Marisol, who had already danced with Roberto and Jaslyn's brother, approached me. I politely declined. This upset Jaslyn, and a sense of possessiveness surfaced in her. On Easter, while watching the kids hunt for eggs, I heard Marisol tell Jaslyn that she was jealous that she could give me children. Jaslyn calmly replied that Luna is my daughter, regardless of circumstances, and that Marisol must always remember this. Marisol broke down in tears. It was the first time I saw them begin to get along. That's how things are now. I hope that in time, everything will balance out. Update 7. Why does God constantly test us? Healing takes time, patience, and understanding. It really helps to have support nearby. My wife, my rock. Seeing how she cares for my daughter, how she supports her, and now even drives my ex-wife to her therapy group amazes me. I thanked her for everything and told her how lucky I am to be with her. She smiled, kissed me, and said that I saved her too, reminding her of her cruel ex, how trapped she was, and being with me and my family is the least she could do. We sat watching TV, hugging, when I got a message from my cousin. I blocked him immediately. A week later, another message arrived. I burned it. Another week later, Jaslyn said her brother was seriously planning to ask Marisol out on a date. I didn't care, but I said that Marisol is an adult woman who has gone through a lot of trauma. If he understands that and is willing to be patient, I have no objections. The next day, another message came from my cousin. I burned it again. Normally, I would have been outraged at how he finds me, but given my rare name is easy to Google, it wasn't surprising. In mid-June, we were sitting by the fire. I smiled watching Luna dance with Roberto without music. Jaslyn rested her head on my chest, and then I noticed her brother kissing Marisol. I smiled. A few days later, my cousin wrote to Luna on Facebook. She had a panic attack. Roberto blocked him. But that same evening, while we were in the supermarket, Jaslyn's ex appeared. He tried to talk to her. I saw fear in her eyes and just reacted. One punch. That was enough to make things clear. My wife, my rock, my support stood trembling with fear. I had never seen her so scared. I wanted to finish that bastard, but the sheriff intervened and threw him out. While the sheriff was talking to us, I saw her ex pass by the window and smile at me. The sheriff noticed, grabbed my arm and told me to take Jaslyn home. The whole way, she was silent. When we arrived, she simply asked me to hug her and not let go. Luna was very worried about her. Jaslyn hugged her. None of us had ever seen her like that. I just wanted to protect her. Later that same day, her brother came and said that he, along with the sheriff, visited her ex and told him to leave town. But it didn't work. The next day, he showed up at my auto shop, threatening to sue for assault. I just smiled at him. I had already thought of 6 ways he could disappear in the 10 minutes he was yelling. He fell silent. But over the next week and a half, he continued testing me. Jaslyn was constantly afraid, thinking he might do something to her or me. Her brother, who works as a gamekeeper, warned him to stay away, but this filed a complaint with his superiors. I wanted to confront him every day, but Jaslyn begged me not to. But I am her husband. I had to protect her.
I told her I wouldn't touch him. Later, her father told me everything that man had done to her. I asked why you hadn't dealt with him. He smirked and said he was just about to. But suddenly, he broke his legs by accident and ran out of town. He gave me a wide smile and I couldn't help but smile back. On the 29th, we were preparing for the upcoming Western Idaho Fair when I received another letter from my cousin. This time, I just left it on the table. At that moment, Marisol came up to me and asked, "Do you mind if I try to build a relationship with Jaslyn's brother?" I told her that if she felt ready, I had no objections. She shrugged and admitted that she didn't really know what she wanted, but she liked him and often thought about him and his children. I told her I wanted her to be happy. She cried, but these were tears of joy, and I was happy for her. Then the phone rang. It was the sheriff. He told me that Jaslyn's ex and another man were in the hospital, one with a literally crushed face, the other with broken eye sockets. I braced myself, expecting to be blamed, but the sheriff said my son-in-law Roberto was at his precinct. It turned out that many witnesses defended him. I didn't want to hear the details over the phone and rushed to the sheriff's office. When I arrived, I saw Luna at the reception desk with a huge bruise on her left cheek. The sheriff explained that, according to witnesses, Jaslyn's ex deliberately pushed Roberto when he and Luna were leaving the coffee shop. An argument broke out. Then another man appeared and also pushed Roberto. Luna pushed both of them away, and Jaslyn's ex hit her in response. After that, Roberto sent both of them to the hospital. The sheriff didn't press charges, but said he had to notify Roberto's superiors. After his release, Roberto had to immediately leave for Yuma, a 13-hour drive. Luna blamed herself for being the first to push Jaslyn's ex. Jaslyn blamed herself for the whole situation. Surprisingly, Marisol supported both of them. But the most unexpected twist happened recently. A pregnant woman, 6 months along, came into the workshop. She called my name, and when I looked at her, she said she was my cousin's fiancée. I was shocked. She explained that my cousin has leukemia, and had tried to contact me, Luna, and Marisol to make amends. I told her to leave, but she refused, begging us to take a test to see if we could be bone marrow donors. She started crying, saying she didn't want her child to grow up without a father. I told her he would do his child a favor if he just disappeared. She hit me and said my cousin had told her the whole truth. She knew everything he had done, yet she wanted him to remain in their child's life. She begged me again to take the test. I'm almost certain I'd be a match, because I always seem to get lucky in these shitty situations. When I returned to my office, I opened his letter. I expected a plea for mercy, a request to save his life, but instead, it was a confession. He wrote about everything he had done, how as a child he admired me and loved me, but when I got involved in a life of crime, he began to hate me for the pain I caused our grandmother, how I always protected him, guided him, and taught him to stay out of trouble. But he saw me as a hypocrite because I didn't follow my own advice. When I took Marisol from him, it was the last straw.
He hadn't expected me to genuinely try to change my life. How he interpreted my arrest as a sign from above, as vengeance for everything I had done. How besides her refusal, he felt he had to have her. How because of him, the woman he loved ended up broken. How he ruined his daughter. How he destroyed the only person who loved him unconditionally. He also wrote that if his fiancée came to me for help, it was true. He was indeed sick, but he didn't want me or Luna to take the test. It was his choice, and he would accept the consequences. The letter ended with apologies to all of us. Soon after, I met with my pastor and told him everything that accumulated. He compared me to Job. Ironically, out of all the biblical stories, I hated the book of Job the most. The pastor told me that everyone goes through trials, some greater, some lesser, but the story teaches us compassion for those who suffer and shows how pain and trials make us better. This morning, I went to the hospital. The advantage of a small town is that everyone knows everyone. I didn't even have to ask. A nurse immediately took me to my cousin's room. I sat and waited for him to wake up. When he saw me, he was shocked. We talked, even with his jaw wired shut. He fully understood what would happen if he ever approached my family again. I had forgotten how easily I could become the dark version of myself again. And here I am now, sitting in the oncology ward, typing this long stream of thoughts on my phone, wondering if I should take the test to see if I'm a match. I think about why we are constantly sent these trials, why we are forced to endure, why there will always be people who want to destroy everything. Update 8. I just need to get this off my chest. Hello, everyone. I want to thank you, even the haters and skeptics, especially the ones I met at the fair who were shocked that we actually exist. Right now, I'm sitting on the balcony of a hotel room. A few hours ago, I spoke with my wife and children. I miss them. 2 hours ago, I buried my cousin. I was the only person at his funeral, the only one at his memorial service. I had tried to become a bone marrow donor for him. When I told the family, Luna was shocked. Jaslyn was proud of me for doing the right thing. Marisol understood everything. She said, despite all that you did in your youth, you were never a killer. I went through a full cycle of tests to make sure I could be a donor. I even flew to Puerto Rico in November to tell him my cousin in person. He looked so emaciated, barely smiling when he saw me. He thought I had come to forgive him. I told him no. I came to help. I told him he was a match and I was ready to be a donor. He laughed and shook his head. He refused. I told him he needed to stop being a coward and become a father for the child his fiancée is expecting. He replied that it was already too late, that the treatment wouldn't work, that he would die, and he had accepted it. I spoke to his doctors. They confirmed it. Then he said his fiancée had taken all his money, emptied his house, and disappeared. He said, I deserved it, and I can't argue with that.
We sat in awkward silence, watching TV. The next day I went back again, and the next day, and for another week, we didn't speak, just sat there and watched TV. When I returned home, I told Luna. She hugged me tighter than ever before and asked, "Are you okay?" I just nodded. Thanksgiving passed. I returned home in December. I spent a week just sitting in silence with my cousin. On Christmas, Roberto paid me back for the trailer. Then he and Luna told me they were moving to Yuma. I should have been happy for them, but I cried. I had only just gotten Luna back, and now I had to let her go again. I knew it was selfish, but I wanted her to stay just a little longer. She cried too, promising to visit more often. I didn't want to let her go, but I knew I had to. On New Year's, my brother-in-law proposed to Marisol and she said yes. I thought they were moving too fast, but Marisol said she had put her life on hold for too long and wanted to be happy. Then she asked me to give her away at the wedding. I agreed, and we got completely drunk. A week and a half ago, I flew back to Puerto Rico, walked into the hospital room, just sat down and turned on the TV. My cousin looked at me and said he regretted being such an asshole. I looked at him and said he was lucky
because if he weren't dying, I would have punched him. He laughed and said he had no doubt about it. I laughed too. The next day he died. We had been watching TV, and he said, "I'll take a nap and not wake up." At his memorial, no one came. At his funeral, I was the only person standing by the grave. And no matter how much I had hated that bastard, I couldn't stop crying as they lowered the coffin. I remembered all the good times, teaching him to tie his shoes, helping him with writing, teaching him to play handball, showing him how to drive, taking him to his first R-rated movie. All these happy moments flooded my mind. And all the shit he did to me, none of that mattered. I just stood there, silently crying while the earth covered him. Now I'm sitting in a hotel room, and for the first time in years, I don't feel that weight in my chest that had haunted me. Therapy didn't help. Anger management didn't help. Even meeting with Jaslyn didn't help. Even getting Luna back. Every positive change in my life hadn't removed this burden. But these last days with him, those moments before his death, they took that weight away. They took the anger away. And I don't know why. I don't know how. Well, that's the end of the story. Share in the comments how you feel, what you felt while listening to it. In my opinion, this is one of the most emotional stories on our channel. Reading this story, I reflected on many things in my own life. Should I forgive certain moments with certain people? And woven into this story is a kind of biblical narrative. You listen and think about all of it, about forgiveness, about trials that inevitably fall on everyone's life.
I refuse to let my husband's brother move in with us, the same man who once peed on my belongings and tried to blame my cat for it. I'm 29, my husband Ted and I have been together for 10 years. We met back in college and have been inseparable ever since. I graduated earlier than him and took a semester off to travel while he finished his studies because we were planning to move to another state afterward. But Ted had to retake several classes, so when I returned, we couldn't move yet, and I didn't have my own place. I moved in with him and his roommate, who also happened to be his older brother, Ash. He's 32. Before I moved in, I made sure Ted talked to Ash about me bringing my cat. They already had an old dog, but Ash said it was fine. About 3 weeks after I moved in, I started noticing a strong smell of urine in our bedroom. We couldn't figure out where it was coming from. My cat is perfectly litter trained, so I knew it wasn't him. The dog couldn't go upstairs due to joint problems, so that wasn't possible either. Then I started finding clothes on the floor that smelled like pee. I asked Ted about it, but he said he had no clue. After 3 miserable months of this, someone was still peeing on my clothes twice a week. I asked Ash if he'd been bringing the dog upstairs, and he denied it. By that point, I was at my limit. I started keeping everything tidy, but I still found urine in my shoes, on pillows, and even decorative items. One day, after I completely broke down in tears, Ted suggested maybe my cat was marking territory, since the urine was only on my things and it was a new environment. But anyone who's ever had a cat knows that cat urine smells nothing like human urine. I knew it wasn't my cat. So I set up a hidden camera in our bedroom. I was paying rent, and Ted knew about the camera, so I figured it was the best way to find out what was really going on. And the footage showed Ash sneaking into our room and peeing on my stuff. When I saw the video, I packed my things and my cat and went to stay with a friend until Ted finished school. After that, we moved out. When the truth came out, I refused to talk to Ash. He disgusted me. Ted handled all communication with him. Since then, I've barely interacted with him. He was one of the groomsmen at our wedding, but we stay away from each other at family gatherings. During the pandemic, Ash lost his job and apartment. Now he's struggling financially and asked if he could stay with us. And honestly, I don't want him anywhere near me. The man was 25 when he did that, a fully grown adult. Now Ted's entire family is calling and texting me saying I'm heartless for leaving him homeless during a pandemic. But they weren't the ones whose clothes he peed on. I was. Maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe I should let it go. But every time I think about it, I just can't. I know I'm right. I have every reason to not want him in my home. But even Ted is starting to say he can't just abandon his brother, especially since the job market here is better for his field. For context, yes, Ash went to therapy after the incident. His mom made him go. That's when we learned why he did it. Apparently, Ted and Ash had always been very close, and Ash saw me as a threat who was stealing his best friend, so he thought doing something that awful would drive us apart. Instead, it only made Ted stop talking to him completely for a long time. The therapist later suggested they make amends, and Ted's mom helped them reconnect, but it was agreed that I'd never have to speak to Ash again or let him into our home. As for the wedding, it was mostly for our parents. We would have been fine with a small ceremony, but since I was the first of my sisters to get married, my family wanted something big. All my sisters were bridesmaids, and all of Ted's brothers, including Ash, were groomsmen. I didn't have to talk to him or take pictures with him, so I didn't care. Why can't another family member take him in? Because we live on the East Coast, and the rest of the family is on the West Coast. Ted's job opportunities are much better here, so moving is not an option. I'm even trying to convince his brothers, there are 8 of them, to pitch in and help Ash stay over there. Ted's family has this forget and forget mentality. They overlook things I find appalling, like stealing cars, forging degrees, and misusing money. So of course they think Ash's behavior was a one-time mistake. Did he ever apologize? Only to Ted, never to me, and that still hurts. I even considered forgiving him, but I realized it would only open the door for him to come back into my life, and I can't risk that. Did he pay for the stuff he ruined? No. I didn't even know it was him at first. I just washed my things. After I saw the footage, I threw out everything that had been soiled, except for 2 pairs of shoes I still haven't replaced. Ted, bless him, is the best man I know. When this all happened, he was shocked and completely cut off his brother. Later, after their mom and the therapist pushed him to reconcile, they made peace, but Ted never once pressured me to forgive Ash or let him in. He told me it's okay if I never want to see his brother again. And honestly, I love Ted enough to tolerate Ash's presence only when absolutely necessary, like on holidays or big family events. But that's it. I will never live under the same roof as that man again.
Update 1. Each part of this story was written at different times over the past few days. So, as many of you suggested, I showed the post to Ted. After reading the comments, he realized that he'd been wrong, not just toward me, but in how he'd let his family treat me. He apologized over and over, saying he should have done more back then, stood up for me, set boundaries, and demanded better behavior from his brother. He made it clear that Ash moving in with us was absolutely out of the question. Ted also reached out to people in his professional field to see if there were any job openings for Ash. One of his contacts happened to work at the same company where Ash had been employed, and here's what Ted found out. Ash hadn't been fired, he just left voluntarily, but his job was still open for him if he wanted to come back. Ted decided to drive over and talk to him in person while I was at work. We live a couple of hours away from Ash. For context, I work 2 jobs, one from 4 p.m. to midnight and another part-time during the day. Not because Ted can't support us, but because I actually like what I do and it keeps me busy and happy. But when Ted got to Ash's place, he found something that triggered a chain of events and revelations that honestly left me more sad than angry. Yeah, I know, people will probably call me spineless again, say I should be furious, but I'm just so tired. I just want to sleep. Still, I feel like I owe you all closure after so many of you reached out, whether kindly or harshly. This is the shorter version of what's happened since my first post. Let's start with Ted's brothers. There are 10 of them. Brother number 1, doctor, military background, wife, 3 kids. Brother number 2, surgeon, wife, 2 dogs, a bearded dragon. Brother number 3, engineer, engaged, 1 dog. Brother number 4, teacher and researcher, wife, 1 child. Brother number 5, works in IT, married. Brother number 6, doctor, single, open to meeting someone. Brother number 7, chef or businessman, wife, 1 child.
Brother number 8, car salesman, wife, 3 kids, aquarium fish. Brother number 9, accountant, wife, 1 cat. Brother number 10, Ash. If I say wife X, I mean the wife of that brother, not that they have multiple wives. Anyway, Ted and I talked about everything you pointed out. He apologized, we cried together, promised to be better, and decided to see therapists separately. If both our therapists recommend couples therapy later, we'll do that too. Now, back to the situation. Ted's contact confirmed that Ash hadn't actually been fired, he just left. That made Ted furious, so he went to Ash's house to confront him. Ash wasn't home, but Ted had a spare key for emergencies, so he went in and waited. At one point, he needed to use the bathroom, but the guest one was locked, so he went into Ash's room to use his. That's when he found a situation. That's how he phrased it when he called me. Ted phoned me and said I should stay home, that he'd be back later because he had to involve his family and didn't want to burden me with more chaos. My stomach dropped, but I just said, please be careful and come home soon. 2 hours later, wife number 8 called me crying, asking if I was okay. I said I was fine, but hadn't heard from Ted, except for a vague message about a situation. She asked if I wanted to know what was going on. I said yes. She started apologizing and said that none of them had known the full story. Apparently, brother number 5 read my post and called brother number 7 to complain that I'd aired family laundry online. But when your brother-in-law literally pees on someone's belongings, it's not exactly a common enough story to confuse with another family. Brother number 7 read the post and thought some details didn't add up, so he called brother number 2, who then called his mom, and by that point the entire family had read it. I'd missed a few calls from brother number 2 and brother number 6, but I was at work and didn't answer. And here's what came out next. The whole therapist story about Ash, fake. The so-called therapist was actually just a friend of his pretending to be one. No license, no education, nothing. He pretended for 3 years just to get his mom off his back. She knew. She covered for him. Said she'd forgiven worse things from the other sons. It all came out when brother number 2 asked her why Ash had never apologized to me. They all assumed he already had, and that I'd forgiven him since I have a reputation for being too soft. Plus, they thought he'd only done it a few times, not over the course of several months. Anyway, wife number 8 told me that brothers number 3, 4, and 8 were already driving to meet Ted because he'd called for help. That freaked me out. She suggested I talk to wife number 1 for emotional support. Then Ted called again, saying he was sorry and that his brothers were handling it. I told him to stop sugarcoating things and tell me what was really going on. That's when he said it. Ash has serious psychological issues. He hates me. In his bathroom, there are pictures of me covered in urine and semen. And apparently, there were photos of brother number 1's 14-year-old daughter, too. I have no idea what she ever did to deserve that. Ted said he searched Ash's bedroom and found old family photo albums that should have been with their parents. Inside, the faces of certain people, ours, were cut out, scratched, or vandalized. When he found one of our wedding photos, yellowed and soaked in urine, he dropped the album in disgust. Then he saw Ash's cat hiding under the bed, terrified and filthy. When he coaxed her out, she was covered in dried urine and semen. Ted called brother number 6, told him what he found, and said they needed to take the cat to a vet immediately. Brother number 6 told him to stay put until they figured out where Ash was. The brothers started coordinating. Brother number 1 was furious and threatened to kill Ash over the photos of his daughter. The rest were between anger and panic. Then Ted called his mom to confront her about covering for Ash. She broke down crying and admitted she'd known the brothers had bullied Ash when they were younger and that she felt guilty for never protecting him. so she tried to make it up to him by constantly defending him as an adult. Ted remembered how when we got married, his mom hovered around Ash constantly. We thought it was just her being caring, but now it all made sense. After she confessed, Ted called me again, apologized, and told me everything. I was so shaken, I called my boss and took the rest of the day off. I just couldn't function. I decided to drive to him because someone had to look after the cat. He told me not to come, said I shouldn't see what he saw, but I couldn't sit still. About an hour into the drive, I got a notification from our smart doorbell, a delivery. It was a bouquet of sunflowers, Ted's favorite flowers. I asked the delivery guy to read the card out loud. They were from Ash. The card said something like, "She set me up by airing our problems. Whatever happens next, it's her fault." I had to pull over and cry. I asked my neighbor to take the flowers, throw them away, and send Ted a photo for evidence. Then I drove to my sister's because I had no idea what else to do. I'm devastated. I loved this family. I thought they loved me back. Now I feel like I've lost them all. I'm terrified for my husband, and even for Ash, though he terrifies me. I don't know what's going to happen next. Ted's brothers eventually found Ash. There were shouting, fighting, and eventually an ER visit. Ash is now under psychiatric supervision. Ted's mother keeps trying to contact me. I don't know if it's to apologize or to get updates, but I'm done with her. Sadly, Ash's cat didn't make it. The vet discovered severe kidney damage that couldn't be treated. The clinic even called the police when brother number 4 brought the cat in, suspecting abuse. It's all such a nightmare. Ted has cut contact with about half of his family. I hope it stays that way. We're both in therapy now, trying to rebuild ourselves. I know I'll never get an apology, and maybe that's for the best. All I know is, no one from that family will ever live in my house again, under no circumstances.
Update 2. Hi everyone. I want to start by saying thank you, truly, for the overwhelming support, kindness, and love I've received from complete strangers online. Your words, messages, and compassion mean more than you can imagine. I promise I'll start replying soon. It's just, the past few days have been incredibly hard. My therapist told me to keep writing, to organize my thoughts and process what's happened. So since some of you are still following my story, I guess these posts have turned into a kind of journal for me. It's been almost 2 weeks since I opened Pandora's box, meaning since I refused to let my husband's brother move in with us. And you all know what happened after that. I'll forever be grateful to everyone who helped me see that some things need to be discussed, even if doing so turned my entire life into chaos. A lot of you asked similar questions, so I'll answer the main ones here. Right now, I barely speak to anyone except brother number 6. He's always been my favorite, the most kind-hearted and level-headed of them all. Honestly, we should have followed his example from the beginning and kept some distance from the family. He's been the most supportive through everything, and he even apologized for all the crap that went down. I talked to brother number 1 and his wife. I offered help in any way I could, but they politely declined, saying I'd already done enough. I'm not sure if that was sincere or just polite distance, but either way, I'm staying out of their orbit for now. Most of the other brothers apologized too. A few of them admitted their mistakes, both in this situation and in the past. Honestly, this family is going to keep a whole generation of therapists in business. I suggested therapy for all of them because, even though I might have been the trigger, this goes way deeper than me. Now, about my mother-in-law. Some people wrote that maybe she's been a victim of manipulation and abuse her whole life. I'm not denying or confirming that. It's not my place. What I do know is that she's had a rough life, but after everything that happened, we'll never speak to her again. She called us screaming that we destroyed her family. Her exact words to my husband were, "I worked for years to keep this family together. I forgave everyone for everything they ever did. And this is how you repay me? By letting some bitch tear us apart? So, yeah, that bridge is gone. Ted's coping the best he can. He's in therapy too, working through his guilt and grief. He keeps apologizing even though I know none of this was his fault. He said that what his best friend and brother did to me will haunt him for a long time. We've been reading some of your comments together. He's thankful for everyone who sees him as someone trying to make amends, but he says he hasn't earned forgiveness yet. He believes it will take years to truly make things right. He even told me that he'd understand if I wanted a divorce, that he couldn't live with himself knowing what his family did to me. But I told him no, I still love him deeply, and I know he isn't responsible for what happened. We'll see how therapy goes for both of us. Where's Ash now? He's still under psychiatric supervision. He's asked to see Ted, but Ted refuses. He did send him a letter, though. I don't know what's in it, and I don't want to. Ted assured me that I'll never have to see Ash again. Once doctors deem it safe, he'll be transferred to the West Coast, where the rest of the family can deal with him. Brother number 3 is currently overseeing his condition and agrees it's best to keep him far away from us. Ted still discusses the medical updates with him, but I stay out of it, and that's perfectly fine by me. Following your advice, Ted and I took a break. I quit one of my jobs and switched to remote work for the other. We've been staying at my dad's seaside apartment while Ted's on leave. His boss has been very understanding. It's mid-January now. The weather is gloomy, but the ocean view helps calm my mind. Being far from all that madness has been healing. I also changed my phone number so Ted's family can't reach me anymore. And honestly, it's the best decision I've made. It's just me, Ted, and our cat here. I filed for a restraining order against Ash. I'm not sure what legal steps brother number 1 is taking for his daughter, but I know he made her delete her social media accounts. If there are further actions, that's their call. We're moving soon, not sure where yet, but both of us know that our current house no longer feels like home. Over the next few weeks, we'll start looking for a new place closer to my family. As for what was in the locked guest bathroom, sorry to disappoint, but there were no body parts or horror movie scenes. It was just more of the same stuff they'd already found in the main bathroom. I don't think Ash is some serial killer in the making. He's just a severely disturbed man with self-destructive coping mechanisms and deeply unhealthy attachments. One commenter suggested he might have some deep-rooted hatred or distorted view of women, and honestly, I agree. All of his disturbing behavior was directed at women. Me, his niece, and even his cat, Sunny. But again, I'm not a professional. How am I doing? It depends on the day. Some days are easier, some aren't. I have therapy sessions every other day. And thank you to those who suggested bringing white noise or headphones into the bathroom. It's actually helped a lot. My sisters take turns visiting me, so I'm rarely alone for long. Many of you asked what Ash's childhood was like. What could have caused this? These are Ted's words. When you grow up with 8 older brothers, you become an easy target for criticism, comparisons, and impossible expectations. When the older ones needed somewhere to unload their frustration, Ash was the weakest, the one they picked on. I'm not excusing anything, but there were things even I couldn't protect him from. Now, as an adult, I see how messed up it all was, and so do my brothers. We each have our own demons to fight. We didn't have a supportive family. Everything was swept under the rug instead of being addressed. It left us broken, unable to tell right from wrong. Some of us got better, thanks to our partners, jobs, and experience, but we still have a long way to go. We can't undo the past. All we can do is acknowledge it and try to be better tomorrow. Why didn't anyone check on his cat sooner? Because there was no reason to suspect anything. Sunny was never a very social cat, so during lockdown video calls, it made sense that she wasn't visible. We weren't visiting anyone during the pandemic, so we had no idea what was happening in his home. Before that, everything seemed fine. Him, the house, the cat. I truly don't know what signs we could have seen or how we could have prevented all this. And I'm so sorry for failing that innocent animal. The guilt of not being able to help her will stay with me forever. Some asked how 3 of Ted's 10 brothers managed to fly across the country so quickly to help. Well, there weren't always 10 brothers. And as for how they managed it, I don't know what to say. They realized how serious the situation was, took time off to leave, and came to help. Their wives handled things at home. That's all there is to it. People also ask how no one noticed anything earlier. Honestly, that's a question for Ted's family. I'm not close with them anymore. Ted says he didn't notice any signs, but admits his closeness to Ash might have blinded him to the truth. So that's my life right now. I'm tired, I'm sad, things still feel heavy, but I have a great therapist who keeps reminding me that I'm safe, that I'm okay, and that healing will take time. Sorry for the long update. And thank you, truly, for your kindness and for taking the time to read about my mess. Edit. I realize I caused confusion earlier. When I mentioned Tad having 10 brothers, I didn't mean there were only sons. It's not my story to fully tell, but from what I know, there were 3 sisters too. 2 died in childhood from health complications, which explains the big age gap between the older brothers and Ted and Ash. The 3rd sister's story is more complicated. She was born between brother number 4 and number 5. And yes, they had a lot of kids. They don't believe in contraception. Sorry again for the mix-up.
Update 3. Hey everyone. It's been about 2 months since all this chaos started. During that time, I've gotten tons of messages and comments asking for an update, most of them kind and supportive. Of course, there were a few nasty ones too, but at this point, I've made peace with the fact that it's just part of internet culture. First off, sorry it took me so long to write this. I know many of you are curious about what's been happening with Ted's family, but I really needed time to process everything. Anyway, here's another miserable little piece of the puzzle so you can finally get some closure. So, Ted asked me to move out for a while. He's been struggling a lot emotionally and said my presence was only making things harder for him. He's drowning in guilt, and dealing with all those skeletons from his family's closet is too heavy for anyone. We're not officially divorced, but we're not looking for a new place together either. We're still in the process of selling our old house. Ted's living there, and I've been staying with my parents. I honestly don't know what will happen once the house is sold or what he really wants, but I promised to give him space. He did allow me to post this update, though, because despite some hateful messages, most of you have been incredibly kind and supportive. Now, as promised, here is the updated version of Ted's family tree, including the sisters. Brother number 1, doctor with a military background, married, 3 kids. Brother number 2, surgeon, married, has 2 dogs and a bearded dragon. Brother number 3, engineer, engaged, 1 dog. Brother number 4, teacher and researcher, married, 1 child. Sister number 1, deceased. Brother number 5, works in IT, married, not many details. Brother number 6, doctor, single, open to dating. Brother number 7, chef or businessman, married, 1 kid. Brother number 8, car salesman, married, 3 kids, and some fish. Sisters number 2 and 3, both deceased. Brother number 9, married, possibly divorced now, 1 cat. Brother number 10, Ash. Now, about the sisters. I only mentioned them this time because, well, the family story is already insane, and this just adds another layer.
I didn't include them earlier because Ted never talks about them. For him, they've simply never existed. All three sisters were born and passed away before Ted was even conceived. So in his mind, he only has brothers. You guys came up with some wild theories, some surprisingly close to the truth, some totally unhinged, but honestly, given what we know about this family, a bit of insanity seems to run in their blood. Anyway, no, the sisters weren't murdered. Sisters number 2 and 3 were twins who died shortly after birth due to a developmental defect. Their lungs never fully formed. That's all Ted knows. I don't talk to his family anymore, so I can't confirm more details. Sister number 1 died in a motorcycle accident. One of the brothers was driving, underage and drunk. I didn't mention this before because it wasn't my story to tell. It had nothing to do with my situation, and I still believe people deserve privacy, so I'm not saying which brother it was. Many of you also asked about the dark secrets Ted's mother supposedly forgave her sons for. I'll share only what's been openly discussed before. I won't name which brother did what, except for brother number 7, since I already told his story. So, here's what I know. Brothers 1 to 4 were the classic golden boys. Smart, athletic, high-achieving. That set the bar ridiculously high for the younger ones. The family expected every child to excel in school, sports, get a scholarship because paying for 10 college educations wasn't realistic, and build a successful career. But brother number 7 wanted none of that. He's a smart guy, but thought it was unfair that his life had to be a constant competition with his siblings. After high school, he told his parents he was going abroad to study culinary arts. His scholarship supposedly covered part of his tuition, but not housing. His parents were thrilled. Their son was going to become a world-famous chef. They agreed to help with expenses as long as he kept good grades and cooked at family gatherings. In reality, he moved to New York, shared an apartment with 4 roommates, and pretended to live abroad. This was before video calls were common, so it wasn't hard to pull off. He just needed to call his parents at times that matched the time zone difference. He even made up stories for family holidays. His parents sent him money for tuition and rent, but he invested it and eventually made a decent profit. Years later, he returned to the West Coast, claiming he was managing restaurants. The truth came out only when one of the nieces said she wanted to apply to the same school and asked him about it. By then, he was already financially stable, so there weren't major consequences. And to be fair, the man can really cook. He still handles Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners. Now for the rest of the family drama. Things I learned from Ted, his mom, or the brothers themselves, and for which none of them were ever punished. Stealing and completely wrecking at least 2 cars, same brother, both times. Another brother also stole a car. Leaving their grandmother alone for a week, even though they were supposed to care for her. Stealing and selling things from their own home. Fistfights that ended with police involvement. Other fights that didn't involve police but did end up with hospital visits. Skipping major school events, stealing trip money, or pocketing class funds. Public nudity, indecent behavior, and urinating in public, apparently a family tradition. One stalking incident that ended with a restraining order. Frequent teenage drinking and underage drunk driving. As for their father, last time I saw him, he was in an urn on their mother's mantle, hopefully still there. In life, he was an awful, misogynistic, abusive husband and father. Somehow, though, he managed to act like a decent grandpa. And before anyone judges, why did you let the kids near him? That's not on me. I don't have children. Ted's siblings do. Ted's parents were, and his mother still is, very traditional. They only ever cared about appearances, the image of a perfect family with proud sons and beautiful daughters. I'm not excusing them, but losing their daughters really broke them and the whole family dynamic. As for why they had more kids after that, they desperately wanted another girl. They tried twice more, then couldn't have children anymore. I don't know if they would have kept trying or if the infertility made things worse emotionally. As for Ash, I honestly don't know how he's doing. I'd love to say I don't care, but I do a little. Therapy has made me more empathetic, and I can see that he's a sick person. I just hope he gets better. Far, far away from me. And that's pretty much everything I can tell you about Ted's family. Big shout out to brother number 6, though. He's been supportive throughout all of this. Still single, by the way, and made me promise to mention that. So, if anyone on the West Coast is looking for a kind, attractive doctor from an absolutely bonkers family, here's your chance. As for me, things are still rough. I had to quit my second job after already leaving the first one. So, yeah, I'm unemployed and living with my parents right now. But my dad says he doesn't care as long as I'm okay, and I love him for that. I'm still going to therapy. It's the one thing keeping me grounded these days.
Update 4. Over the past year, I've written so many drafts of updates, some funny, some sad, a few drunken, but never posted any of them. I was waiting for the right ending to this entire saga. But now I understand. Real life doesn't have perfect endings. Things always keep happening. I just hope that, for all of us, this really is the end of the story, that I can finally move on, and that you'll all get some sense of closure, too. I also hope that writing this will bring me a little peace. I'm finally in a place where I can open up without being weighed down by guilt for staying silent so long. It honestly means a lot that so many of you kept checking in on me, sending kind messages, and caring. It feels surreal that almost a year has passed, and yet I still get sweet DMs from strangers wishing me happiness. If I didn't reply, please know I read every single message, and they warmed my heart. It's comforting to know there are still so many good people in the world, wishing well to someone they'll never meet. I'll admit, part of me is always scared to post updates. On one hand, there are real-life consequences. People have already managed to figure out who I am. On the other hand, every time I write one, it feels like drawing a line under something painful, and part of me wants to keep pretending it never happened. My therapist says that's not a healthy way to cope, which is why I'm here again. It's wild to think that all of this started just a few days after last New Year's. I still remember Ted and me curled up on the couch, wishing for 2021 to be full of adventures and new experiences. Well, wish granted, I guess. I'll be a lot more careful with what I wish for next time. I honestly don't even know what I'll do this New Year's. Maybe I'll take a small trip somewhere, just something to clear my head. What I don't want is to sit on the couch and replay everything in my mind again. Though I have to admit that couch was ridiculously comfortable, and I do miss it. I love Ted. A part of me probably always will. We spent so much of our lives together. He was my person. It still feels surreal that he's no longer in my life. In short, he asked for a divorce, just like that. It was as gentle a breakup as one can possibly have in our circumstances. We both cried through most of it. He kept calling, apologizing. I begged him not to leave. But as much as it hurt, I knew deep down that he needed this to heal from everything that happened. We're still friends. We were best friends for so many years that even if the romantic part is gone, there will always be a bond. I know you're not here to read about my broken heart, though. You want the messy family updates. So I'll share what I know. Just note that since Ted and I are no longer together, I don't have every detail. I'll break things down by sections for clarity, not in chronological order, but organized by people. My former family. Brother 8. Married, 3 kids, a cat, and now a few fish, too. I haven't heard from them since the divorce,
but before that, I know they adopted a kitten named Bob. Brother 7. Married, 1 child. No clue what's going on there. Haven't asked, haven't been asked. Brother 6. No longer single. He's dating someone amazing. His new girlfriend actually found my story on this very forum and still loves him, despite his chaotic family background. We've met a few times over the past year. She's truly wonderful. Sure, there are occasional family tensions, but overall, they're doing great. Brother 6 was also the one who came to see me right after Ted asked for the divorce. He hugged me and said I'd always be his little sister, no matter what. That was bittersweet. Losing a husband and half of the family I once thought was mine, but at least I still have 1 brother left. I only ever had sisters of my own, so that means a lot. Brother 5. Married. He never liked me, and I finally understand why. Turns out he didn't like Ted much either. The brothers were awful to each other growing up, and apparently number 5 was the worst of the bunch. Ted often defended Ash, which put him at odds with number 5, and their tension never went away. I have 0 contact with him now, and I'm keeping it that way. Brother 4, married, 1 child. He's always been level-headed. He personally made sure Ash's name is blacklisted in every local animal shelter, pet store, and vet clinic. He said that even if Ash has become a saint, he's not willing to risk another animal's safety. Honestly, knowing that makes it easier to leave that family behind. At least the cats are safe. Of course, there's always the chance that a stray might wander to him or someone might gift him a pet, but Brother 4 swore he'd do everything possible to prevent that. Brother 3, now officially married with a dog. Back when this whole saga began, they were only engaged. Their wedding was beautiful. I didn't go, even though both of them insisted that I was still part of the family. Ted wanted me there too, but I didn't want to ruin their photos or bring tension. I attended via Zoom, though, and it was genuinely lovely. Brother 2, married, 2 dogs, and a lizard. He was one of the first to step up and take action when everything went down. He apologized to me countless times for pushing us to let Ash stay with us, for everything that followed, and even for how his own actions might have impacted Ted's mental health. I accepted the first 2 apologies, but for the third, I told him that wasn't mine to forgive. He understood. He said he'd keep working on healing their family and admitted that it wasn't fair that I ended up paying the emotional price for someone else's mistakes. After the divorce, he texted to say that if I ever needed anything, he'd always be there. It was a sweet gesture. I know he's seeing a therapist too, and honestly, good for him. Brother 1, married, 3 kids. If you remember, he was the angriest about everything that happened, especially since it involved his daughter. The last time I mentioned them, they'd asked me to keep my distance and give them time. But later, his oldest daughter reached out to me herself. She's such a bright young woman. She said she missed how things were before all this chaos. I didn't ask what exactly her parents had told her, but I assume they explained the situation in some way. She's old enough now to start asking the right questions. Eventually, they decided not to press charges against Ash, but they did move across the country, thankfully for her daughter's sake. She found an incredible culinary program on the East Coast and is absolutely thriving there. Her younger daughter, from what I've heard from Ted's mother-in-law and sister-in-law, is also doing fine. She barely interacted with Ash outside of holidays. Apparently, the reason he fixated on her photos wasn't personal. She just looks exactly like their father, and combined with the fact that she's a girl, it triggered him. I'll explain that part later. She's still seeing a therapist, but hates every minute of it, claiming it has nothing to do with her. She's mostly angry about the move and leaving her friends behind. Anyway, that family seems to be safe and rebuilding. They're slowly settling into life on the East Coast. The parents still keep their distance from me, which I completely understand. They're not fans of the colder weather, but I told their eldest daughter she's always welcome to visit me. Brother 1's wife is kind enough to allow it.
As for brother one, himself, we haven't spoken since. All communication goes through his wife and kids. I was the first among my sisters to get married, and since Ted's family hadn't had a big celebration in years, his older brothers were much older, everyone was thrilled. I never regretted marrying Ted for a single second, but honestly, I could have done without the grand wedding. Sometimes I wish we had just gone to the courthouse alone or run off to Vegas to be married by Elvis. I'm not even sure people still do that, but it sounds a lot cooler than a 200-guest circus. I remember when we finally agreed to the big wedding, and my mother-in-law was absolutely over the moon. For the first time, it felt like she saw me as more than just another daughter-in-law added to the pile. It might sound silly, but that feeling, being accepted into the family, actually meant something to me, even if it came at the price of a massive wedding. I tried to include her in everything. With 10 sons, she probably never got many chances to help plan girly things. At first, she was sweet to me, maybe just to get her way, and I was too naive to see it. I stayed the golden daughter-in-law for a while after the wedding, probably up until another grandchild was born. Then I was relieved to step back and return to a more comfortable distance. Being her favorite was exhausting. It came with too many expectations. It's wild to think how badly I once wanted her to love me, and how now I'd give anything for her to forget I even exist. After Ash was sent to a psychiatric clinic, my mother-in-law did everything she could to destroy me. I cut contact with her and most of the family for a while, eventually rebuilding ties with a few of them, but not with her. I've only seen her once since then, when she came to pack up Ash's apartment. She deliberately came to my parents' house just to scream at me. It was horrible and perfectly timed. My parents were both at work, my sisters too. I opened the door, and there she was. No greetings, no pretending. She unloaded everything at once, every imaginary slight, every accusation. She called me a worthless wife, said she hoped the divorce would crush me, that she'd make sure her son took everything from me, that she wouldn't rest until I was homeless. And the worst thing she said, the one line that burned itself into my mind, was that she was grateful I was barren, because she couldn't stand the thought of me tainting their blood. Ted and I never actively tried for children, but we never prevented it either. We just figured if it happens, it happens. It never did. And now I can't help but wonder if it makes me a terrible person that part of me feels grateful for that. Our neighbors called the police that day. They escorted her out. That's how my sister found me, sitting on the floor, holding our cat, shaking. She called Ted, and I think he heard the details from his fifth brother, the one who must have driven her there. I didn't see him myself. We haven't spoken since. I don't know what Ted told her or what she told him. I only know that she left me alone after that, and for that, I'm thankful. Ted is probably the most decent ex-husband in the universe. I could tell 1,000 stories about him. It's strange to be without him now, but I try to respect his choices. When he asked for a divorce, he said, "I can't be with you anymore. I'll never forgive myself for what I put you through. I don't want to keep exposing you to my family's madness." At the time, I was furious. He was making decisions for me without asking what I wanted. But after a lot of therapy, I realized he wasn't doing it for me at all. He was doing it for himself, to ease his guilt, or maybe to convince himself that ending things was some kind of mercy. Maybe being apart helped him pretend none of it happened. Or maybe he genuinely thought he was protecting me. But it hurt because I always saw us as a team, not me versus him, us. And his decision destroyed that team completely. Some days I wake up hating him. Other days I just stare at my phone debating whether to call. Sometimes I do, and he always answers. Always kind, always calm, reminding me that he's still around. We sold the house, and of course he moved out. For a while he went to the West Coast to deal with family matters during the divorce, then came back. His work was here, and he loved it. I can't tell if I'm glad he's still in the same city, or I hate him for ruining it. every street, every cafe, every corner has memories of him. Maybe I'm the one who should leave and start fresh, somewhere no one knows my past. As for Ash, when he was first sent to a psychiatric facility after the fight with his brothers, numbers 3, 4, and 8, the same ones who came at the beginning to help, he stayed there for several weeks. He kept begging to see Ted, but Ted never went. He did, however, send him a letter. At first, I didn't want to know what it said, but later I asked. Ted told me he wrote, "Stop asking for visits, start focusing on yourself and your life, stop putting yourself above your own needs." A few weeks later, brother number 3 arranged for Ash to be transferred to the West Coast. I don't know whether they placed him in another facility or left him under family care. His mother, along with brothers 5 and 7, came to pack his things and move him officially. Afterward, Ash lived with his mother, and brother number 2 was put in charge of making sure he continued treatment, and I'm pretty sure he still does. When Ted went west to deal with family stuff, it was rough for him. He met with some of his brothers, maybe not all, but definitely the ones most involved. According to Ted, brother number 3 shared some insights from Ash's doctors. They said Ash had suffered a psychotic episode and remained in treatment afterward. I never heard the full diagnosis, but Ted said the therapists had gone deep into their childhood, their family dynamics, and especially how Ted's overprotectiveness had fostered an unhealthy attachment. When Ted told me all this, he sounded detached, like he was talking about strangers. Maybe that's how he copes. Many of you asked what could have happened to Ash to make him the way he was. Here's part of it. I won't say which brothers did what. You can fill in those blanks yourself, but yes, most of your guesses were disturbingly close to the truth. Beyond the usual bullying, beatings, humiliation, mockery, there were far worse things. They locked him in closets, stole his clothes, left him outside overnight, blocked all the bathrooms so he'd wet himself. They threatened him with weapons, abandoned him miles from home and made him walk back in any weather. They put him in diapers, tied him up, dragged him around on ATVs, poured water on him and left him freezing. They even sprinkled itching powder in his underwear. It's horrifying, isn't it? I know siblings fight, but this was beyond cruelty. What could he possibly have done to deserve that? It doesn't excuse what Ash later became, but it explains a lot, especially his deep resentment toward women. In his mind, women were weak, useless. His mother hadn't protected him, so how could any woman? And his brothers had kept him isolated from any girl who showed him interest. That's how his twisted attachment to Ted formed. Ted was the only one who ever defended him, and we all know how that ended. Now Ash is somewhere out west. I hope he stays there. I kept 2 pairs of shoes that Ash had ruined with his disgusting golden shower. Everything else I threw away. One pair was the first thing I ever bought with money from my first internship. They symbolized independence to me. Losing my job, my home, my peace, it all felt like those shoes had lost their meaning. But now as I rebuild my life piece by piece, new home, new job, small steps, I look at them differently. I haven't worn them since that day. But maybe someday I will again, when I finally feel whole. Happy holidays, everyone. I don't know what mine will look like this year, but I truly hope yours are filled with light and peace.
Update 5. It's been a long time since I last came here. I'll try to keep this one short. Some people messaged me saying my updates were too long or that I took forever to get to the point. If that bothers you, feel free to skip this. My life isn't meant to be your entertainment. I'm only writing because I've received an incredible amount of kindness and support from people asking how I've been and wanting to know what's new. So if this seems too long, stop reading any time. My story won't change your life anyway, except maybe as something to pass the time. The last time I wrote was before the holidays, and honestly, my plans for them were pretty terrible. I swore I wouldn't sit around wallowing in self-pity, but guess how that went? Yeah, exactly that. I just didn't have the strength to celebrate.
My family absolutely loves Christmas. The lights, the laughter, the chaos. I didn't want to bring my mood into it, so I told my dad I'd be spending the day with a friend who'd recently lost her husband. She actually went to visit his parents, and I stayed home with my cat watching movies. Ted called me on Christmas Day, and for the first time, I didn't answer with, "Are you proud of me?" I know a lot of people here will be happy about that. So many of you told me to cut all contact completely. But please understand, I couldn't just erase someone who had been my best friend for 10 years. Later, he texted to ask if I was okay. He said he saw some photos of my sister on Facebook and noticed I wasn't in any of them. I should probably ask my sisters to block him. He adores them, and they still care about him too. Before everything went downhill, Ted was honestly a wonderful person. Even now, he's trying his best. Maybe I'm biased, but he's not the monster people imagine. He's going through something deeply traumatic too. Facing the truth about what his family did isn't easy. I stared at his message for hours, trying to decide what to write back, and ended up not answering at all. I wasn't doing well, but he's still the one who knows me better than anyone. Our 10 years together weren't wasted. We didn't split because we stopped loving each other. We split because it was what we both needed. I had my family and all of you to lean on. Ted didn't. Some of his brothers hate him even more now. He lost his best friend, his little brother, his wife, and in a way, even his mother. It's easy to paint him as the villain, the one who hurt me. But you've only heard my side. He's still human. He made mistakes, but he's not evil. And I don't think he'll ever see our divorce as one of those mistakes. Eventually, I just replied something like, "Wasn't in the mood to celebrate. Stayed home. Merry Christmas." He must have sensed something was wrong because he showed up. He knows the area where I live and the park I love walking in. He asked if we could meet, and I agreed. Yeah, I know, not exactly a boundary win, but baby steps, right? We talked for hours. I didn't realize he'd spent Christmas alone, too. Maybe if I had, I would have invited him over or gone to my parents with him. Many of you insisted that cutting him off completely was the healthiest option, but I don't agree. Maybe I'll change my mind later, but right now, I think we still need each other a little. Every day I feel like I need him less, but that day I really did. And sometimes he still needs me too. I want to believe we can stay friends, though deep down I know that probably won't last. Someday he'll have a new partner, and I doubt she'll be thrilled about me. Or maybe we'll just drift apart naturally, or I'll finally get angry enough to hate him. But right now, he helps me in ways no one else can. It might sound silly, but I don't think anyone else truly understands who I am now. I'm not the same woman I was before all this, not even the same as a year ago. What happened with his family changed us both. Not everyone understands why I can't calmly take my kids to the bathroom anymore, or why I had to leave work early when my boss gave me sunflowers on Women's Day. Ted does. He's barely in contact with his family now, just minimal messages with brother number 4 and brother number 6. So I don't have much to update about Ash or the others. Brother 6 says he's sad Ted is pulled away from him too, since he's also cut off most of the family. But he understands and says he'll be there when Ted's ready. A lot of people told me what I used to call bullying was actually abuse, and they're right. That word matters. For too long, I downplayed it, brushed it off as boys being boys, or that's just how brothers are. I thought it was normal. By minimizing it, I became part of the problem, the same problem that eventually broke everything. If any of us, the wives or I, had known the real extent of what happened in their childhood, so many choices would have been different. Of course, much of the blame lies with my ex-mother-in-law, but I think everyone's learned their lesson now. I'm not ready to date again. I need to learn how to be alone. Ted and I had been together since college. It's been so long that I'm not even sure I remember how to go on a first date anymore. But hey, that's what Google's for.
Being alone took some getting used to. I don't even want to call it loneliness. Sometimes it's peaceful. You finish your book and the apartment is quiet. Not in a sad way, just calm. I've learned a lot. I realized how often I relied on others for things I could have done myself. I changed a tire for the first time, terrified because the blowout happened on the highway, but I did it. I learned plants have different needs after killing a few. Now I've got a little basil plant that's thriving. I discovered I actually don't like action movies. Too fast, too loud. I learned how to cook shrimp. Ted couldn't eat them because of his allergy, so I never made them before. Tip: don't forget to remove the vein. There are things I miss without him, though, like having someone to drive me to the ER when I sliced my hand cutting carrots. By the way, hospitals really should have valet service. Or sitting alone at the vet's office when my cat got sick. Or having no one to hold me on the anniversary of my childhood friend's death. Oh, and I absolutely hate mopping floors, but now that's my job. That's about it. I haven't seen Ted since Christmas, but we text occasionally and have had a couple of phone calls. We're learning how to be apart without completely cutting off the support we still give each other. We're both still healing. But now, for the first time, I can honestly say, I see the light. Before, I was just existing day by day. His birthday is coming up soon. I don't think I'll go, but I'll make sure friends check on him so he's not alone. I think this is the right moment for a final update, a quiet ending with a bit of hope for the future. Though, who knows? Maybe one day I'll surprise you with another post titled, "Another Year Later." For now, I can finally say, it's going to be okay.
Update 6. Hello, dear readers. How are you all doing? Almost a full year has flown by. We've all grown a little older, and hopefully a little wiser, too. It still amazes me that after all this time, there are people who continue to follow my story, sending kind words and thoughtful messages. For my haters and those who don't enjoy my long monologues, here's your short version. I bought a robot mop, my basil plant died, life seemed to finally get better, my ex-husband tried to hurt himself, and now I'm back living with my parents. Following some advice from commenters, I first bought a steam mop. It helped, sure, but I still had to deal with wet floors, and stepping into damp socks has always been one of my biggest annoyances. Then, following other advice, I got a robot mop. I already had a robot vacuum, but had no idea mopping versions even existed. It's perfect. I love it. I set it up before leaving the house, and when I come back, everything's clean and dry. Best feeling ever. My poor little basil plant didn't make it. Totally my fault. I moved it from the kitchen to get more sunlight, and it just couldn't handle the change. I used the last leaves in a pasta salad. Arugula, cherry tomatoes, mozzarella balls, olive oil, salt, and basil. Simple and delicious. Someone gave me miniature roses afterward. I killed those too within a couple of months and finally accepted that living plants and I are not compatible. Life sucks, and then you die. One of my sisters always loved that saying. She sees it as a reminder not to dwell on the bad because life is short. But to me right now, it sounds painfully literal. I went on a date recently. A friend introduced me to one of his coworkers. It was awkward. I couldn't tell if I'd always been that socially clumsy, or if first dates are just meant to be weird, or if we simply didn't click. The whole dinner, I had this overwhelming fight or flight feeling. He was nice, though. Maybe dinner was too formal. People probably do coffee dates these days, and that might have been easier. Or maybe I'm just not ready yet. My new job, well, not so new anymore, is wonderful. My boss no longer gives me flowers. I'm not sure if he figured it out himself or someone told him about last year, but when everyone else gets bouquets, I get lamps. Sounds odd, but I love lamps and anything that glows.
Over the past year, he's given me a cat-shaped nightlight, a string of fairy lights, and a Himalayan salt lamp. He's a genuinely kind person, and I appreciate his thoughtfulness so much. My coworkers are amazing, and for the first time, I feel like my work actually has meaning. I used to have 2 jobs, one for the soul and one for the bills. Now I have one that gives me both, and that feels almost miraculous. Sometimes I regret wasting so many years in places that drained me. So this feels like a win. I know I'm rambling again. It's just hard to know where to start or what's safe to share. And to be honest, it's a bit unsettling knowing some people are still quietly watching me through this account. I don't really care, but it's a strange feeling, like being observed from afar. Ash was a victim of severe abuse growing up. Everyone was shocked when the truth came out, mostly because he'd always kept up the image of being perfectly fine. Prestigious engineering degree, solid career, a stable life after college. It all started unraveling during the pandemic lockdowns. I've thought about it a lot. Would he have broken down if the pandemic hadn't happened? Or would something else have triggered it? Would someone else have opened that closet full of skeletons? The endless what-ifs are exhausting. I've imagined dozens of alternate realities, some happy, some tragic. I know it's unhealthy to dwell on it, but sometimes I envy those imaginary versions of life where things turned out differently. And no, Ted didn't die, though even typing that feels surreal. He's still here, more or less okay. It took a lot of therapy sessions for me to accept that what happened wasn't my fault. I was just caught in the middle. What Ash became was the result of years of abuse and neglect from his family. Sooner or later, it would have surfaced with or without me. I like to believe someone else might have eventually convinced him to see a real therapist who could have helped him. But we'll never know. The only thing I'm truly grateful for is that the breaking point involved me and not Brother One's daughter. The consequences would have been far more horrific otherwise. After the divorce, I still kept light contact with Brother Six, but after advice from many of you, and from people in my life, I decided to distance myself. A few months later, he reached out asking if I'd heard from Ted. I said no. He told me something serious had happened in the family. No details, and I didn't ask. He said everyone had been trying to reach Ted but couldn't. He was worried and said he was planning to come to town to check on him. Asked me to let him know if Ted contacted me. I knew Ted had been deliberately keeping his family at a distance, including Brother Six, so it didn't surprise me much. Still, Ted would never ignore a genuine family emergency. I texted him that his brother had reached out, trying to find him. He read it, but didn't reply. At that point, we were already pretty distant, just like many of you had advised, so his silence didn't alarm me too much. A couple of weeks later, Brother Six messaged again. He was in town and wanted to meet. I agreed. I'd missed him. I suggested a new restaurant I thought he'd love, but he said just coffee. That was strange. He's a total foodie and never turns down a chance to try new places. But I figured he was short on time and wanted to focus on Ted. We met in my favorite park, and he looked awful. I instinctively stepped back. That gut feeling when you know bad news is coming. I honestly thought he was going to say, Ash is back, but instead he looked completely defeated. He told me something else had surfaced in the family. I didn't ask what. I don't care anymore. Sorry to disappoint those hoping for spicy details. I know that's what draws half of you here. Anyway, when he went to Ted's place, he found him in terrible shape. Ted had never been much of a drinker, only on holidays, socially, but that morning, at 10 a.m. on a Saturday, he was completely wasted. His brother stayed with him, sobered him up, and the next day told him about the family matter. He went back to his hotel to grab his things, and when he returned to Ted's apartment, he found him unconscious. He called an ambulance. Ted was taken to the hospital and stayed there for a while. I don't know if something new had happened or if the weight of the last 2 years finally broke him, but it looked like he'd been living in self-destruction mode for a long time. My therapist said it makes sense, that maybe it even explains why he chose to end our marriage. Maybe I'm just looking for a reason, but knowing Ted, it fits. He's always been the protector type, even as a kid, shielding Ash. He's the kind of person who makes sure no one spikes a girl's drink at a bar or checks on a child standing alone on the street. He has controlling tendencies, usually born from anxiety. He's a meticulous planner, but when things go off script, it shakes him. He's strict, but incredibly dependable. I always loved that about him. During our final talks before the divorce, he kept apologizing over and over for not protecting me, for putting me in harm's way. Even when I told him it wasn't his fault, I don't think he ever believed me. He had to face a painful truth. His family wasn't what he thought. He realized he'd helped silence things, downplay things, excuse things. He had to confront how horrifying their childhood really was and what monsters some of his brothers became. It crushed him. He was fighting trauma, guilt, helplessness. Eventually, Ted checked himself into a rehabilitation center. He didn't let me visit, but sent letters. They're too personal to share here, but reading them were emotional. The first few were full of apologies for worrying me, for everything. Then came longer, scattered ones, and some truly beautiful. I could see him slowly shifting from overly polite and self-blaming to someone closer to the man I'd once loved. Watching him begin to finally understand what I'd been trying to tell him for years felt like witnessing a kind of catharsis. He said writing helped him process, and I believe it. That's why I still write these updates. Why letters to me, though, instead of a journal? I don't know, but I'm not complaining. There was one letter where he was just angry, furious at everyone and everything. And weirdly, that one made me the happiest. It meant the fire was coming back. He even called me a nickname he hadn't used since before our wedding, and honestly, it infuriated me.
It wasn't anything serious. He was just reminiscing about that trip we once took to visit friends, a couple who ended up fighting the entire time. They argued so badly that they wanted to leave halfway through the vacation. Everything had already been paid for, but they simply couldn't stay together anymore. So we split up. The guys and the girls did everything separately. Ted was miserable the whole trip. Later, he sent me a message that said something like, "I still haven't forgiven Alice for Venice. You were supposed to be the one in that damn gondola with me, Peaches, not Steve." The nickname itself didn't bother me, but reading it brought back that old ache, the feeling of loss, the memories of what we'd lost. Against his earlier wishes, I replied to the message. That one answer led to us talking again. He wasn't upset that I broke his no replies rule. Maybe he had wanted that all along. We ended up exchanging letters for several weeks, and honestly, it was nice. We never mentioned Ash or his family, not once. Maybe it just never came up, or maybe he was avoiding the topic on purpose. Either way, it felt so good to talk to him again, like we used to. When we first met, we used to chat through Facebook Messenger, and this whole exchange brought me right back to those early days. Silly as it sounds, I still love him. I still miss him. These letters made me feel like I'd gotten my best friend back, even if he's no longer my husband. Ted's back in his own place now. For a while, his brother, number 3, and his wife stayed with him, along with their dog, while Ted recovered. Thanks to remote work, that worked out fine. He's on antidepressants now, has a lot of people supporting him, and honestly, he's doing so much better. He stopped pushing everyone away, but still keeps healthy boundaries, and that's such a good thing. He talks to brothers 3, 4, and 6 again. They were always the closest to him, besides Ash. He still doesn't talk to the rest of the family, though, which is a little sad, especially because I know he loved some of his nieces and nephews deeply. I think he misses them, but keeping his distance is probably the right choice. Funny enough, brother number 6 also doesn't talk to most of the family anymore. He's always been more withdrawn, a bit like Ted and Ash. Maybe he understood more than the others. After everything that happened, he grew closer to brothers 3 and 4. Another small silver lining, I suppose. Ted and I have met up a few times, sometimes at group events, sometimes just to talk. I can truly see the difference in him.
He's gained back some weight, his hair looks healthy again, and he doesn't slump his shoulders anymore. Just last week, he finally returned to work after being on medical leave, and I can tell it's given him back his sense of purpose. He was never the type to sit still, so that downtime must have been torture for him. We went to an animal shelter together recently. He adopted an older cat named Socks, probably because of its white paws. Sweet cat, but missing a bunch of teeth. Ted's been trying to rename him Macbeth, but the cat clearly isn't having it. To be fair, Socks doesn't really respond to Socks either, so maybe there's still hope. As for me, I'm still on the East Coast, and 2022 hit us hard. 2 hurricanes slammed into our city, and my apartment got flooded. Whenever a state of emergency is declared, Dad always tells us to come home, so the cat and I were safe, but it was still a nightmare. I don't know if it was the universe sending a message, but remember those 2 pairs of shoes I kept? They were both completely ruined. I tried everything to save them, even spoke with restoration specialists, but they were beyond repair. And it wasn't just them. Half my belongings had to be thrown away, including so many sentimental things. You guys know how attached I am to shoes, even when they've practically turned into biohazards. My poor apartment took a beating. We had to rip out the floors. Mold had already started growing underneath by the time we could even get inside. Most of my furniture was destroyed. All my electronics, even my poor little robot mop. I did have sandbags, but they didn't help much. Insurance covered some of it, but definitely not everything. Filing those claims was its own special kind of hell. In the end, it made more sense to renovate and sell the apartment. I've always hated moving, but this time it hit me harder than usual. Maybe because I had so little to pack. I filled just a few boxes. Even when I went to college, I took more with me. So yeah, I'm back living with my parents. It's both annoying and comforting. The house feels emptier now. My youngest sister recently left for college, but at least I have the cats. And honestly, cats make great company. Right now, I'm finalizing the purchase of a new condo, in a high-rise this time just to avoid another flood. I'll miss the park near my old place, but the new neighborhood is great. Everything's close by, and I could even bike to work if I ever learn how to ride one. Why can't I? Because Dad was overprotective and convinced we'd all die if we got on a bike as kids. I don't know if it's too late to learn now, but I'm ready to swallow my pride and start with training wheels if I have to. That's where things stand right now. I'm focusing on work and spending more time with my parents. I've planned a trip for March, my first solo trip ever. I'm terrified. Dad used to be the planner, and I have no idea if I'm doing it right. But maybe that's the point, to figure it out myself. I'm even taking language classes for the country I'm visiting, so we'll see how that goes. There's something else I wanted to share, the real reason for this update. Remember how brother number 6 met with me back then to talk about Ted? I was terrified he'd tell me Ash was back. Thankfully, that wasn't the case. But while Ted was still in treatment, a letter arrived at my parents' house. From Ash. For the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel fear. Maybe it's because I'd been exchanging letters with Ted, or maybe I just finally healed a bit. My therapist probably deserves a raise. I even offered, but he laughed and said that's not how therapy works. Anyway, I read the letter. Ash apologized. He admitted to a lot of things he'd done, small acts of aggression, manipulative behavior, things I hadn't even recognized for what they were back then. He didn't try to justify himself, just owned it. He also confessed to a few things I hadn't known about, some of which a few of you actually guessed. The letter was messy, desperate, but I understood why. He apologized for hurting Ted, said he probably understood Ted's pain better than anyone else, that he knew he'd caused irreparable damage and could never be part of Ted's life again. He said that even if he couldn't make amends directly, maybe acknowledging his mistakes and apologizing to me was his way of honoring Ted indirectly, of trying to atone even a little. One line really stuck with me. "I'm sorry I ruined your marriage, but I don't think I ruined your life. Ted wouldn't have chosen you if you weren't strong." He thanked me for trying, and I really did try in the beginning. I wanted to stay friends with him, but after the incident with the urine, that became impossible. He admitted he'd given up on the idea that anyone but Ted would fight for him, and apologized for never giving me a chance. He said he envied the happiness I brought Ted, a happiness he himself couldn't give, and now regrets that his actions cost Ted that joy. I think writing the letter was his way of easing his guilt, acknowledging what he'd done to his beloved brother, and maybe respecting Ted's boundaries in the only way he knew how. Of course, he didn't respect mine. I never told Ted about the letter, and I don't think I ever will. I told brother number 6, though. He was furious at first, but later calmed down and said it was my choice. He said the letter wouldn't really do any harm, but it wouldn't help either. If I ever do decide to show it to Ted, it should be when he's in a stable place, maybe even in therapy, with professional support. Christmas came again, and this time I spent it with my family. My sisters are amazing. Each gave me a pair of shoes representing milestones in my life, plus one empty box for the pair all buy to mark a new beginning. It was the most thoughtful, emotional gift I've ever received. I cried through most of Christmas morning. On New Year's Eve, I saw Ted again. We were both invited to a mutual friend's party. We didn't plan to spend time together, but somehow kept ending up in the same group, laughing together. When midnight hit, I was sitting toward the back, away from the couples, and he came over, sat next to me, and rested his head on my shoulder. We just sat there in peaceful silence while everyone else celebrated. It felt so good, such a relief, to have my friend back. I still love him. I probably always will. I tried keeping my distance, tried not talking to him, even slept with someone else hoping it'd help me move on, but it didn't. Maybe he's my soulmate and we'll always be drawn back to each other. Or maybe it's just habit, comfort built over so many years. I don't know. But I can't stop loving him. I love the man he used to be. I love the man he is now. And honestly, I'll love whoever he becomes tomorrow and the day after that. I won't give up on him, even if I have to give up on us. I'd rather have him in my life as a friend than lose him completely. I'm always happier when he's around. I deserve to be happy, and he makes me happy. Maybe that's wrong, maybe it's foolish, but it's the truth. Everyone keeps saying that letting go was the right thing, that he did me a favor by ending things. But I miss him. Maybe that makes me stupid, but if it does, I'll gladly be a happy fool. If he ever asks me to step back, I will. But for now, I just want to live in this moment.